into greatness. Indy champ Rick Mears and the proven Penske race team have that edge. The quest for the edge can even cause champions to force their hands with a chance of losing it all. 1988 three-time winner Al Unser Jr. has tested that edge. When the stakes are this high, you don't hold back. Michigan, knowing when to play your trump card is the difference between winning and losing.
You got any aces? Go fish.
Deal us in.
The game is poker and we are using my cards.
The world's leader in motorsports coverage presents Speed World. In 1985, Emerson Fittipaldi surprised everyone at the Michigan 500. This road racing expert won his first kart race on this high-bank 2-mile tri-oval. Mario Andretti won in 1984, but in 1985 he crashed and suffered a broken hip and shoulder, forcing him to miss the first race of his career because of injuries. In 1986, Rick Mears set an all-time IndyCar qualifying mark here with a lap over 223 miles an hour. Later, he would go on to establish a closed course speed record in excess of 233 miles an hour. As the drivers come to Michigan, thoughts of the most recent event are still fresh. Al Unser Jr. and Fittipaldi came together, sending Immo into the wall, Little Al to victory lane, and Fittipaldi into a fit of rage over the incident. Today, from Michigan International Speedway, ESPN's exclusive coverage of the Marlboro 500. Being brought to you by the heartbeat of America, today's Chevrolet. By Quaker State Motor Oil, the big Q stands for quality, always has, always will. By Goodyear Eagle Tires, Goodyear because there really is a difference. And by Busch Beer, the beer with a taste as smooth as its name. You are looking at Rick Mears, who has won his 4th pole for a Michigan 500. He also seeks to become a step closer to winning auto racing's Triple Crown, Indianapolis, Michigan, and Pocono. But a Roger Penske car has never won at this facility, which Roger owns. A few minutes ago, Rick was introduced to this huge crowd, and Larry Nuber was there to talk to the man who'll lead him down for the start.
500 miles in the Michigan High Banks. It's 10-tenths racing all the time.
It really is. It's, I tell you, the way the Pennzoil car is working, it's going to be tough to back off, I think, for what we need to back off to make sure you run all day. Obviously, I think Chevrolet's going to have no problem running all day, but it's so fast out there, we can lean on the car pretty hard. I think we're going to have to be very careful with tires and everything else to, you know, I think the guy who uses his head's going to run the best today.
Can you hold your breath for 500 miles?
Well, I don't think so, but I think the way the Pennzoil car is working, we don't need to.
Al Unser Jr. seeks to become only the 3rd driver in kart history to win 3 races in a row. He's also trying to get a step closer to the Marlboro Million. Just before getting into his car, Gary Lee talked with him.
The hottest driver in IndyCar racing, winner of the last 2 outings, Al Unser Jr. In fact, you've won 3 of 5 road course events this season, but you're having all kinds of difficulty throughout your career winning on an oval. What's the problem?
Well, we don't know. I think if we knew, we'd fix it. But really, the team's been doing great all season long. We've been in contention on the ovals. We just haven't been able to finish one. And so hopefully today we'll be running at the end of 500 miles.
This is the Marlboro 500. You're the only driver in contention for the Marlboro Million, which means you have to win here and at Miami after your victory at the Meadowlands. If you win here, an extra $150,000. That has to play on the mind.
Well, a little bit it does. You know, it's definitely an extra incentive, and really it's great that Marlboro has gotten involved at that big of a way. And you know, it's really great that we're the only contenders for it, and really the only thing on our mind today is make it to the end. And if we can make it to the end, then we'll be able to collect some points for the PPG Championship.
The time that we've all been waiting for is here. Now, for those famous words, we go down to pit road for the command to start the engines.
Marlboro Red and Lights, David Mackey. Gentlemen, start your engine.
So 28 cars fire to life and 28 drivers settle in for what they hope will be 500 miles of competition here this afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bob Jenkins, and welcome to Michigan International Speedway for the Marlboro Michigan 500. It's the second leg of IndyCar Racing's Triple Crown for 1988. In the booth with me today will be Steve Chassie, who has started 5 previous 500s here at Michigan. They say a driver needs 10 tenths to compete here, Steve. Can you explain that in layman's terms?
Well, I think the easy way to explain it, Bob, would be if you remember when you were a youngster walking on a fence rail. Well, this is like the highest fence rail you've ever walked on. It requires a 10-tenths effort to keep your balance. And if you have one little lapse of concentration for just a second, everything is for nothing, because you have 1,000 corners to do, you have a 3-hour race, and pit stops. So it requires a 100% effort from the driver and the car to do good here.
218 miles an hour was the pole speed turned in by Rick Mears earlier this weekend. This race has also seen a lot of first-time winners. Pancho Carter in 1981, John Paul Jr. in 1983, and Emerson Fittipaldi in 1985. We'll be back to introduce to you the starting lineup for today's Marlboro 500 right after this. For the Marlboro 500 IndyCar race, there's a lot of prestige associated with this event, and there's also a lot of money at stake for these 28 drivers. Today's purse, $700,000. The winner will get about $106,700. The field is on the track, warming up, and this is the track that they will be competing on for 250 laps. It's a 2-mile D-shaped oval. The turns are banked at 18 degrees, it's 73 feet wide, 250 laps, and they'll be able to go about 40 laps before they will require a fuel stop. 28 cars and drivers behind the pace car, and now let's take a look for you. The starting lineup for today's Marlboro 500 IndyCar race. On the pole, qualifying at 218.427, Rick Mears from Bakersfield, California. Al Unser Sr. will start in the middle of the front row in the Detroit Diesel Penske, and Mario Andretti third. Second row, Bobby Rahal in car number 1. Danny Sullivan drives car number 9, and Al Unser Jr. in car number 3. In the third row, Emerson Fittipaldi in car 20, Derek Daly in 10, and Gordon Johncock in 85. Going to row number 4, now it's Raul Boesel in car number 30, Ari Luyendyk in number 7, and Teo Bobby drives car number 8. In the fifth row, Johnny Rutherford in car number 14, Michael Andretti in 18, and Tom Sneva in car number 71. The sixth row consists of Roberto Guerrero in number 2, Dick Simon in 22, and Tony Bettenhausen in car number 16. In row number 7 will be John Andretti in car 98, the 91 car of Scott Creighton, and the 11 driven by Rich Vogler. In the 8th row, Phil Kruger in car number 77, Billy Vukovich III in 56, and Randy Lewis in 24. then Scott Atchison in car number 55, John Jones in number 12, and Howdy Holmes in car number 21 in row number 9. And all alone in row number 10 will be Dale Coyne in car number 19. Now, Dale was actually disqualified. The car was after qualifying, but they've decided to allow him to start in this race. They'll watch him for 5 laps and determine then if they will black flag him. Apparently a problem here with Scott Braden's car, Steve, is it required a tow to get started.
I'm not sure what happened, Bob. He stopped on the backstretch right in the middle and sat there until the truck came along and gave him a tow. So apparently it was something small so he can get started again. Now I'm sure he's heading to the pits.
The word is that he has what's described as a minor engine problem, and so he now catches up and goes into his assigned starting position. Our in-car cameras today are being carried by Al Unser Jr., who starts this race in the 6th position, the Team Valvoline March. And we're also in the Michael Andretti car, the car of the defending champion of this race, the Graco Lola. Yes, Michael Andretti has switched to a Lola for this event for the first time. The Hardee's race cam being carried today by Michael Andretti. So now, Steve, you're in the race car, you're warming up the engine. What's going through the driver's mind as he sets out for 500 miles?
Well, first of all, you're listening to everything, checking all your gauges, hoping that everything will stay the same if it's right. And then, of course, you're thinking about the start. What will you do on the start? Will you watch the cars in front of you, or will you go for it and try to make up positions on the start? Usually, you'll try to make positions up once you cross the start-finish line, but you always have to look ahead because your reaction time compared to speed here gives you no time at all to adjust for a problem if there is one in front of you.
2 Penske cars in the front row, Rick Mears, a pole sitter, and then Al Unser Sr. here in car number 60, the Detroit Diesel Penske PC-17 Chevy. A bit of a surprise. I think we all expected the Penske cars to start up front, but perhaps Danny Sullivan there in the front row beside Rick Mears. That didn't happen, of course. Danny Sullivan will begin from 5th position. The pace car is pulling in. The crowd rises. We have a full capacity crowd here as they watch the cars come down for the start, and the green flag is out. The Marlboro 500 is underway. The track is nice and wide. We will see 3, 4, and possibly even 5 abreast racing as the event goes along. They race down the backstretch for the first time, and positions are being fought for there. There you can see Al Unser trying to go into 2nd position. Mario Andretti has that 2nd spot at the moment. And now here comes Rick Mears, the leader, to complete lap 1.
Rick jumped out to an excellent start, has an excellent lead. And I'm sure he hopes to keep it that way all day, Bob.
Speeds begin to build. As look at the interval that Rick Mears has opened up. There's his teammate, Danny Sullivan, who is dropping back. That's Gordon Johncock going to the high side of Danny Sullivan there in the 2nd turn. So Danny may have a problem. We have been informed that he's suffering from a minor stomach disorder. However, that in itself should not be a problem. He will maybe require some extra fluid during this race, however. And Gordon Johncock is really moving up. He's right behind Lyondike right now in that number 7 car. But the gray and blue machine of Gordon Johncock, who has, of course, many miles of experience on this racetrack, he is looking good here in the early laps.
I thought early on that Gordy would be an excellent race this week.
And look at this. Al Unser Jr. has apparently lost an engine. The car is very slow down the backstretch. From his in-car camera, you can see he is trying to get it to the pits. Could it be? It looks like he's weaving the car, Steve. Might there be a problem with the fuel pickup?
Well, you wouldn't think so. With a full load of fuel, you wouldn't weave the car to get the fuel to the pickup. So I have no idea why he's weaving unless he's feeling something. Maybe he feels something broke on the car.
What a terrific disappointment, though, for Al Unser Jr. This pretty much eliminates the possibility of $1 million going to a driver this year, because if a driver could win Meadowlands, Michigan, and Miami, Marlboro would pay him an extra $1 million. And it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Had he won here today, he would have picked up $150,000. As you can see, the car is very, very slow in the 3rd turn. In fact, he's stopped now, and this is going to bring out a caution.
We weren't looking for a caution today. We were hoping to have a full race under green. And there's still a possibility to break the record.
Shelley, of course, very disappointed. She's listening to the radio conversations that Al is having with the crew, trying to explain what's wrong with that car, but terrific disappointment in this Valvoline crew as Al Unser Jr. sits stalled in the third turn. You can see his frustrations. He's pounding the steering wheel, and it appears to be all over for Al Unser Jr. So the cars now slow down as they run under yellow, and Rick Mears is still in the lead. When we go back to racing in just a few moments, Shelley Unser disappointed that her husband appears to be out of the race. We are under yellow. Al Unser Jr. has a problem, and so does Arie Luyendyk as he comes in. Here's Gary Lee.
Right now, they are checking the back of the car for any oil leakage. It could be a turbocharger problem. They'll take this opportunity to top off some fuel, but now apparently they're going to take the rear covering off the engine. He has stalled it. And so right now there's a large question mark hanging over the Pravimi crew as Arie Luyendyk can do nothing but sit patiently in the cockpit.
And pretty much the same situation up the pit road just a little bit, Gary, as they're putting the engine cover back on Al Unser Jr.'s car. However, he still sits there, as does Arie Luyendyk. And you can see the tremendous frustration that these drivers are suffering here in the early laps of this race. Johnny Rutherford was scheduled to be in the booth with us for this 500-miler, but at the last minute, he got a call from A.J. Foyt saying, "Can you help me out?" A.J. was hospitalized for some tests. He had some pain in the abdominal area, so they took him into the hospital in Houston, and he has been diagnosed as having a bruised kidney. He is out of the hospital and back at home watching this afternoon. Johnny, A.J., we wish you well and hope you're back for the next race. Now the green flag comes out, and Mario Andretti tries to make a move on Rick Mears into turn number 1, but Rick holds off the challenge of Mario at the moment as we are back under the green on lap number 8. Al Unser Jr. is moving out of the pit area and back into competition. There's the second place car of Mario Andretti. You can see the interval there between first and second. There is Al Jr. building up speed now as the car is down in turn number 1 below that yellow line. Excellent pictures from the in-car camera. He has lost several laps, though, and this is going to be just impossible to make up. Put himself in contention to win this race, but at least he's back out there and will be perhaps gaining some valuable kart PPG points. Rick Mears still leading on the track with Mario Andretti second, and somewhat of a surprise running in third place at the moment is Emerson Fittipaldi, who began from 7th but has really had a good run here in the opening laps as he has moved up to 3rd position. There you can still see Al Unser Jr. moving back up to speed. Here comes the leader, Rick Mears, through the tri-oval once again, completing the 10th lap of 250 that will make up this race.
It looks to me as though Rick is pulling the lead back out that he had previously, but also we see Emerson Fittipaldi coming up to pick up on Mario Andretti.
Now, that early caution that we had, Steve, with the Al Unser Jr. problem, does that change race strategy in any way as far as pit stops or whatever?
It will change a little bit. They didn't run that many laps on the yellow, but it will be a fuel savings because they figure every yellow lap is worth 2 compared to 1 green lap.
And you can see there Johnny Rutherford moving up as he went around Michael Andretti. Michael just does not seem to have very much going for him here. He's fallen back to 15th position. So he started in 14th. There he loses another spot, and they've been having problems all weekend long. As we told you, this is Michael's first race in the Lola, but he says the Lola's working fine. He just isn't getting the horsepower out of the Cosworth engine.
Well, it looked like at that time, when you saw his hands on the steering wheel, here you see his hand. He's always turning left, not a lot, not enough push to slow the car down, and he's not coming back in a loose condition, so it must be an engine problem.
Danny Sullivan and Al Unser Sr. are racing together out there on the track. Al Unser Sr. at the moment being shown in 4th position, and there is Danny Sullivan, who is in 5th spot.
Danny seems to have picked back up a little bit. He started to slow down a little, and now he's picked back up racing with Al.
Closing in just a little bit on Al Sr., his teammate Bobby Rahal is right behind Danny Sullivan as Rahal runs in 6th position. There you see the red car. Bobby Rahal in 6th spot. Rahal started from 4, so he too has dropped down just a little bit. We understand that it is an engine problem that has put Arie Luyendyk out of the race, and he may be listed as the 28th finisher in this event. Dale Coyne has been black flagged. The CART officials have watched him for several laps, and really Dale just does not have the speed, Steve, to stay out there on the racetrack when these guys are going well over 215, 220 miles an hour.
No, he really doesn't. And it's Wally Dallenbach's judgment. If Wally feels that he is going too slow and could be a problem for the faster cars lapping him, that's his right to black flag that car off the racetrack, which he did, which is a safety factor, and that's exactly why he did it.
All right, as we watch Bobby Rahal in 6th position, there is Al Unser Jr., who is running just ahead of the leader, Rick Mears, but Rick, of course, is looking to put him another lap down. And there is our in-car camera once again with Al Unser Jr. Let's go to Gary Lee in the pit area, who's with Rick Gallis, the owner of this car. Maybe he can tell us what went wrong.
It was devastating early. You're back out there, but you lost a lot of time. What was the problem?
Well, we've been having electrical problems the whole weekend, and it looks like that's what it was. We don't know for sure, and hopefully we can hang in there and get some points. He's running hard. I mean, we're running 2:08, so we'll just do the best we can.
Still a long race. You can only stay out there and hang in there.
And you can bet that little Al will stay out there and compete just as long as he can. You got to have such emotion, such adrenaline flowing to start a race like this, and then for it to something to go wrong in the first couple of laps just has to be devastating for a race driver.
This makes a race a long drudgery because he's out of the race as far as winning unless something really, really bizarre happens. He's out of the race. Now he's thinking points, he's thinking championship, he's thinking finishing the race, and it's a long, long day when you know you can't win and you're out working as hard as you can, giving your 10/10s all day long for maybe a 5th, 4th, 6th place finish.
Great competition on the racetrack at several occasions. There you can see 4 cars running nose to tail down the backstretch, separated by only about a second between them. Rich Vogler is in this group. John Andretti is also, Randy Lewis, Scott Brayton as they come off of the 4th corner. They're really closing up here. Billy Vukovich III is also in this pack of cars.
Simon's leading this pack.
Scott Brayton moving to the inside now to try to pass Howdy Holmes. Howdy crashed during the Friday morning practice session, and he did not qualify in the Friday session. He was the only car to qualify in the second day of qualifying, and put the car in the show with a 2:04.9 to qualify for 27th. And now we see that Rick Mears is already approaching the slower traffic. That's Billy Vukovich III right there ahead of him. Now he goes to the inside and passes him, and he's moving up on Randy Lewis.
Rick is having a pretty good time so far. You know, it depends upon traffic. Now we have 2 cars side by side. It's difficult for him to make a pass. And the longer he's held up in traffic, the more time he loses to the second place car. But he's such a master at this racetrack and at ovals in general. He'll find his way through very easily. And if these fellows are watching their mirrors in front, they'll give him plenty of room.
Moving to the inside and lapping another car. Now, in the driver's meeting, Steve, where do they tell you to run on the racetrack if you are being lapped?
They usually tell you to run on the inside, driver's left, because the outside is the fast part of this racetrack, as is most tracks. The groove is on the outside of the racetrack. Here they'll tell you to move down, watch your mirrors, stay in line, don't make any quick adjustments.
Mario Andretti, you can see there, has closed in just a little bit on Rick Mears, and it, I think, can almost all be attributed to the fact that the guys have been running in traffic for the last couple of laps, but now there is no lap traffic between Rick Mears in first and Mario Andretti in second. But look at this battle for 3rd position. It is Al Unser Sr. going high on the racetrack. Emerson Fittipaldi is low, and this, Steve, is giving it 10/10. Look at Emerson Fittipaldi now trying to go to the inside of Dick Simon as Al Unser moves high on the racetrack. Grade 3 abreast racing.
It looks like Emerson's having a great ride. And when your car feels that good and you're as racy as he was today, this is fun. But when your car is not operating right, it isn't fun, it's work.
And here comes Danny Sullivan right behind. Emerson, I think, has a point to prove. He's so disappointed because of what happened at the Meadowlands when he was leading the race and it looked like he had it in the bag, and then he had the incident with Al Unser Jr. He wants to win this race not only because it's sponsored by Marlboro, the same as his car owner, but he's got some proving to do to himself and his fans.
Absolutely. And as you can see, he is giving what we call 10 tenths. He is going high, low, wherever we have to go.
Rick Mears is the leader by about a second and a half over Mario Andretti as we are 22 laps into the Marlboro 500 from Michigan. Rick Mears, the leader of the Marlboro 500 in just 8 races. He has earned over $1 million. That's the earliest that a driver has ever earned that much in a season. He's stretching out the advantage just a little bit over Mario Andretti. The interval at about a second and a half or a second and 3/4. Tony Bettenhausen also in the shot there. But Mario Andretti has passed him and now is continuing to pursue Rick Mears.
Rick is running a real smooth, strong race, and his car must be operating just the way he wants it because there's no hesitation whatsoever in traffic. If he has to dive low or go high, he goes for it, and the car just follows what he says.
While first and second is separated by a little bit of an interval, we got some really great racing going on here at the end of the backstretch. And that's Johnny Rutherford in the black and red car. And on the outside of him
looks like
Howdy Holmes, right, in car number 21. Actually, that is Phil Kruger in car number 77, not Johnny Rutherford. So Phil Kruger now looks to the inside of Howdy Holmes in a wheel-to-wheel battle, 2 abreast in turn number 2.
Phil's done an excellent job with this 86 March car. He seems to have what it takes to get the most out of these older cars, and he's done an excellent job here this weekend. Teo, Teo has showed marked improvement over the past few races, and I think they're starting to get their problems worked out, and he's improving every race.
Teo is listed in 9th position, so he is lapping that slower traffic. He's not in a position battle with them. Teo Fabi in the Porsche car number 8. Shown in 9th position. We also saw Tom Sneva back there in that blue and silver car. He's on the high side of the racetrack right now. Tom Sneva is shown in 10th position. He too is running for the first time since the Indianapolis 500 in an IndyCar race. And Howdy Holmes appears to be slowing down on the racetrack. Meanwhile, we go back inside the car of Al Unser Jr. And he's still out there running very well, but remember, he is several laps down because of an electrical problem that plagued him in the opening lap.
He looks as though he's not running as hard as he would be up front, so he may still have some sort of a small problem.
You know, there are many race drivers who, if they can't win, they just come in. You can see some jockeying for position. Many would just come in, and if they can't win, they're going to give it up, but not little Al. He's out there for valuable points that could keep him atop the IndyCar standings. We'll join Al Unser on a lap around Michigan. Here is the leaders, meanwhile, and look at this. Mario Andretti has caught Rick Mears, and it's now right on his rear wing as Rick goes to the inside. 3 abreast through that corner. Rick Mears now separates himself from Mario Andretti by 2 cars. Mario had caught him, though, but now is dropping back because of the lap traffic. It's John Andretti and the number 12 car of John Jones that Mario Andretti now passes on the inside of the racetrack in turn number 3. Now he'll once again try to close down that interval, as Rick also has a lot of slower traffic ahead of him as they cross the stripe in the tri-oval.
Now Rick has to decide what the best line is to take. Shall I stay on the inside or try for the outside? When you have a pack of cars in front and they're all over the racetrack, it's real difficult to choose a correct line.
And of course is Roberto Guerrero right ahead of Rick Mears, as Roberto has returned to the IndyCar wars. The secret of success for Rick Mears, well, we talked to him about it earlier in the weekend.
Well, not really that I know of. I think it's probably just something that's evolved as, as I've learned and maybe refining or working with chassis, which is one thing I enjoy doing. I enjoy doing the chassis end of it and working with it. So maybe that, is what helps that, makes it happen. But I've always, I've had people say, well, how are you doing this or how are you doing that? And or what are you doing this corner or that corner? I don't know. I said, just go do it. It's tough to explain. It's just something you do. And I never really thought about learning it as part of the natural end of it, I guess.
Well, Rick Mears has certainly seen a lot of success in his IndyCar career, but Michigan International Speedway, especially the Marlboro 500, has not been especially good to him. His best finish, a third here in 81 and 84.
Shows Bobby Rahal just passing Danny Sullivan, a lap car in between, and all of a sudden he stretched out 15, 20 car lengths.
So Bobby Rahal now goes to 5th position, and Danny Sullivan drops back to 6th. Bobby Rahal on the inside of the racetrack. The Judd engine performing well for him. It has all season long. They've done extensive testing since the most recent race, and they are beginning to make that car work very, very well. We anticipate pit stops here in just a few moments. Several are beginning to make them already as Derek Daly has come in. We anticipate a stop from Rick Mears. And yes, indeed, here comes the leader, Rick Mears, for his first pit stop on lap 34. Larry?
Well, Bob, Roger Penske is the man over the wall with the stop sign, anticipating Rick Mears. The crew has been over the wall for just one lap. Everything has been extremely routine down in this pit area all weekend long. Now, the Goodyear tires are excellent pieces of engineering that they have brought to MIS this weekend, but as a precautionary measure, the Penske crew has changed all 4 sides of the tires in terms of the 4 corners of the Rick Mears car. And it was a very routine pit stop, just like all weekend has been.
And it was 13.7, Larry. Rick Mears goes back out onto the racetrack. He had lapped, by the way, up to 9th position when he came in for the stop. Now here comes Emerson Fittipaldi in, and right ahead of him is Mario Andretti. Let's go to the Immo pit. Gary Lee.
Gary Ravazzini and crew go to work on the Marlboro number 20. Are they changing tires? No, they apparently are not going to change the Goodyear Racing Eagles. They top off the 40 gallons of methanol. A good quick stop for a former winner here on the high banks, Emerson Fittipaldi.
And he and Mario Andretti pull out of their pits at just about the same time, but because Mario is pitted down toward turn number 1 further, he will get back out on the racetrack ahead of Emerson Fittipaldi. So they're going to stay basically in the same running order when all is said and done and all pit stops are made, with Rick Mears leading, Mario Andretti in 2nd position, and Emerson Fittipaldi in 3rd. But for the moment, the leader is Al Unser Sr., who has not made a pit stop to this point, but of course will be making one very, very shortly. There's Rick Mears, who will go back into the lead when all of the pit stops have been made. We're on lap number 37 of the 250-lap Marlboro 500 from Michigan International Speedway. We'll be right back. Back at Michigan, pit stops continue to be made, and here is Danny Sullivan in for his stop as the Penske crew changes the tires and fills up the car with fuel. They've got a problem, it appears.
Left rear tire, Bob. They're bringing it back up, and it wasn't quite tight.
And this is what we say again by 10/10. You mentioned it, Steve, in the open of the show. You not only have got to concentrate on the racetrack, but you've got to have good pit stops. Here's Al Unser Sr. in the pits. Larry is there.
Well, wearing a brand new number, emblematic of one of his sponsors' products, by the way, this weekend, Al Unser Sr. Bob, you called at the beginning of the show. This has been one of the surprises. He has continued to run up front. Now, unlike Rick Mears, who changed 4 tires, Al Unser was in and out in 12.2 seconds with no change of rubber. Interesting piece of strategy. A dichotomy there, the opinions of the tire wearer of the 2 Penske lead cars.
So about a second faster pit stop for Al Unser Sr. than for Rick Mears. And now just about everybody has come in for his first pit stop, and we go back, concentrate on what's going on the racetrack. There is Mario Andretti running behind, now beside of, and lapping the number 91 car driven by Scott Brayton. Al Unser Jr. is also in the pits. Gary Lee reports.
Second time in the pit area for Al Unser Jr. A little bit later than his normal pit stop because of the earlier stop. They change all 4 tires in the Valvoline Stroh's car, and he is back out.
And we're riding with him as he picks up the momentum, headed down pit road. Will keep the car low on the racetrack, below that yellow line. through the first and second corners and will begin blending in with the faster traffic as he comes off of corner number 2. He has to stay below this yellow line through the second quarter. Now he can move out. When you see the white line, he can move back out on the racetrack and blend in at that point with the other competitors.
What he'll do when he comes off the corner, he'll start going up through the gears, and he won't move out past the halfway point on the racetrack until he looks in his mirrors, entering somewhere near the third turn. Then he'll move out, because cars can overtake you at the rate they're coming off that corner, and you're just starting out. They get to you so quick, you can't notice it.
The yellow flag has come out for the second time in the Marlboro 500. We don't see anything serious. It is a piece of debris, we understand, that is on the racetrack, we believe around the third turn area. We have the cart vehicles moving to pick up the debris, but for the moment we have a yellow that has slowed the field for the second time this afternoon. In all of 1987 during the Marlboro 500, there were only 2 caution flags for a total of 25 laps. We have had 2 in the first 42 laps of the 1988 version of the Marlboro 500. A huge crowd on hand. ESPN is here. We'll be right back. Back at Michigan International Speedway, where the yellow remains out, we're going to try to talk to Johnny Rutherford here, who, as we mentioned, was supposed to be up here with us, but is in a race car instead, the A.J. Foyt car. Johnny, how are things going here in the first 43 laps for you?
Oh, we've still got a problem with our wastegate, Bob. We think it's still blowing a valve, but I have found a point. We're just going to sit out here and persevere. Like say hello to A.J. When you were here.
Is that the same problem, Johnny, that plagued you during your qualifying effort?
Yes, it is, Bob. We had the same problem with the wastegate and popping the valve, and it's very annoying because the car is handling extremely well, but the engine lays down on me about halfway down the straightaway, and I have to nurse it along. So we're just going to sit out here and persevere and see what happens.
Johnny, it's good to hear from you. We'll be watching you. Good luck the rest of the race.
All right, thank you.
Johnny Rutherford from Fort Worth, Texas, is right now shown in 14th position, a lap down to the field. And according to the official scoring grid that we have here in the booth, there are 7 cars that are on the lead lap, on lap number 44. Now, here is our pit stop efficiency report. Rick Mears had a total of 20.42 seconds getting in and out of the pits. The crew took 14.17 seconds for a total of 34.6. Emerson Fittipaldi had the best overall pit stop when you consider the amount of time it took him to get in and out of the pits, and when you consider the amount of time it took the pit crew to do its job. The green flag comes back out on lap number 45. Rick Mears is still in command of this race. You can see that he just streaked away from everybody, Steve, when that green flag dropped, although Mario Andretti has been his closest pursuer, and really Rick has never been way out of sight from Mario in the first few stages of laps of this race.
No, he hasn't, and it seems as though this time that Mario is staying much closer to Rick. Now, Rick changed tires, could have changed the car a little bit. You know, maybe it's just a little different feel on the tire. But right now, Mario seems to be able to stay with him.
Emerson Fittipaldi is in 3rd position. He's having an excellent race, shown now about 2.2 seconds behind Mario Andretti. He's at the end of the backstretch, and that car right behind him is Bobby Rahal. Let's go to Gary Lee for a report from the Emerson Fittipaldi pit.
Team manager Jim McGee, you had the fastest pit stop of all the guys in that pit serial, obviously because you didn't change tires, but I understand it was not a decision that was made after checking the tires. You guys went into this race thinking you probably would go through that first pit stop without changing.
Yeah, the tires have been looking really good. We feel we can run 90 laps or so on the tires, and the tires are no problem. So as long as the tires happen to suit the track situation, we'll run with the tires for maybe 2 more pit stops.
I may be the bearer of bad news right now. I'm getting a report that Emo may be getting the black flag. Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't.
We'll release you. You can check on that, and we'll check on that situation as well, as Emerson Fittipaldi, a winner here in 1985, may be black flag.
Well, I don't know, Gary. He crossed the line that time, and Nick Finaro, the official starter, did not wave the black flag at him, so I don't think that's going to be the situation, but we'll continue to monitor it. Fittipaldi has his hands full with Bobby Rahal, who now is very, very close to Emerson in that battle for the third position. There's Bobby Rahal right behind Emerson Fittipaldi, closing in ever so slightly.
Bobby has made great strides also with his development of the Judd engine, and whether it's a car engine combination, whatever is the reason for it, I would say it's mostly horsepower, because this is a horsepower racetrack. He is doing much better with his operation, and here he is coming up, and it looks as though he's set to challenge Immo in maybe 1 or 2 laps.
Well, the number 22 car of Dick Simon, that's the car that got black flag. He made contact with the wall at the exit of the pits, and that is a pit violation. So Dick Simon was black flag. He came in for a stop-and-go check of the right rear of the car. Everything is okay. Dick Simon is back in competition. Nope, Emerson Fittipaldi was not the one guilty of the pit violation. He's still very much in contention. There is Michael Andretti in the Graco Lola, and Michael Andretti is shown in 11th position. Let's just watch a few minutes as Michael Andretti goes around this 2-mile trioval. Roberto Guerrero involved in a 3-abreast contest as they crossed the line. That's Gordon Johncock there on the inside. It was John Jones up high on the racetrack, but he was not battling for position. But it is a good contest between Roberto Guerrero and Gordon Johncock, and this is for 10th position. And behind him would be Teo Fabi. Johnny Rutherford is also behind, trying to catch this group of cars.
It looks like Rutherford has passed Teo and is now... That's right. Or is that...
That's Phil Kruger.
Phil Kruger, okay.
Boy, those cars are hard to distinguish, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Roberto Guerrero on the comeback trail once again, as Rick Mears now has that much of an advantage over Mario Andretti. And there is third position, Emerson Fittipaldi. So first, second, and third are running very close together on the racetrack. They're separated by less than 3 seconds. And then Bobby Rahal is only about 4 seconds behind the leader. And Al Unser Sr. is just a little over 4 seconds behind the leader, Rick Mears. So some good competition after the first set of pit stops.
It looks like Rick has once again, in this green flag session, started to pull a little lead out. Not as fast as he had before, but at the same time, it looks like Immo is picking up on Mario faster than he has before. Whether it's the traffic they're coming through, or whether it's the dirty air from the cars in the traffic, or it could be just after the pit stop, Immo liked his tires. He left them on. Mario changed. Maybe there's a little difference there.
In 2 weeks, Steve, we'll be here again for a NASCAR race in which these guys will get in 12, 15 car drafts. Is there drafting that goes on here at Michigan in the Indy cars?
Oh, definitely. The car in front can tow you, and you can run as fast as that car, even with less horsepower. The problem comes when you enter the corner. All that turbulent air from the car in front moves your car around, and it might pick the front of your car up and make it loose, so it'll push. Then again, it might plant the front of the car and make it loose. So it depends upon how your car is set up. And you'll notice during practice, in the last practice session, a lot of cars, especially team cars, will go out and run laps one after the other together to find out what their car is going to do in traffic for a race setup.
So there you can see the first three, Rick Mears, Mario Andretti, and Emerson Fittipaldi, and not too far behind in the red car we saw there just for a moment there is Bobby Rahal. So this is really unbelievable here. These 4 guys are, I would say, almost evenly matched.
This is probably one of the closest races that I've seen in the kart series for a long time at this point in the race, because usually one car is fairly well gone. Here we have 4 cars that, at the drop of a hat, any one of the 4 could be leading this race.
And you would think with a 500-mile race and 250 laps that you'd perhaps take a deep breath here in the early going and look at what happens in front of you. There you can see the front stretch speed of 221.37. You might lay back here in the opening laps to see what everybody is doing, but these guys aren't doing that.
You really can't can't do that. And did you notice when Rick came off the corner, he pulled down, trying to move his draft around a little bit. And it looks like Mario is getting ready to put a move on him right now.
We could have a change of leader. They come off the fourth turn and into the triangle, banked at 12 degrees. 3 abreast. Rick Mears in the middle. Mario Andretti on the bottom of the racetrack. Here comes Emerson Fittipaldi also. Mario pulls ahead by just about a half a car length. Now he makes it a full car length and does indeed grab the lead as they come off the second turn down the backstretch, but Rick Mears will have no part of it. He goes ahead of Mario once again as slower traffic again maybe forces Mario to lift just a little bit. But here comes Mario right back.
Now he might make it, Bob, because there's traffic on the top side and he's in the bottom.
3 abreast. Fittipaldi wants the lead. Let's see how things go. Oh, man.
Fittipaldi used that draft just tremendously. He got a slingshot off the corner and just drove right by it. It looked like a Grand National race. Look at the traffic, Bob.
It's been mentioned several times, but Emerson Fittipaldi, in winning his first kart race here at Michigan, I think really surprised everybody. Here's a guy that had driven only on the road courses in Europe in Formula One when he came over here. And to think that he won on the high banks, just unbelievable. And he's showing right now that he has a tremendous knack for doing this kind of thing. Mario Andretti is there in second position, but boy, we've got a 3-car battle back in third between Rick Mears and Al Unser, and also Bobby Rahal is in the thick of things.
I'd have to say that Rick's car has gone off some way, whether it's tires or whether it's handling or whether the engine is starting to lie down, because he was so strong for so long, and all of a sudden he's backing up.
Bobby Rahal is right there on the rear wing of Rick Mears. Rahal in the red car number 1 and Rick Mears in the yellow car number 5. Al Unser Jr. is now in, Al Unser Sr. is in third. Fourth is Mears and fifth is Bobby Rahal as Emerson Fittipaldi and Mario Andretti run up front.
Rahal tried to make a move that time, but he didn't quite have enough toe from the car in front.
All right, let's go back to just a few minutes ago when we had this tremendous scramble for positions on the tri-oval.
There's Emerson on the inside. He had a little slingshot and some blocked traffic for the Mario and Rick, but he had a clear shot, and that's 110% effort when you see that happening.
Rick Mears is coming in for has to be described as an unscheduled pit stop. Steve may have called it right when he said Rick has a problem. He slides the car, getting it into the pits. Larry Nuber.
Well, Rick Mears comes in, not catching the crew off guard. They obviously were talking to him on the radio. They knew that he was coming in. They're taking the opportunity to refill the tank with fuel. They're changing tires on both of the front sides of the race car, making an adjustment on the front of the wing, perhaps putting a little more wing in it to give him a little more bite as he goes around the high banks. He turns this in 16.9 seconds, Steve Chassie, but Steve, here at Michigan, 16.9 seconds is at least a half a lap when you count into it all the slowdown speed and the speed up speed coming from the pits. That's almost a full lap.
All right, Steve, let's analyze that pit stop. He changed tires on the right side. There was a wing adjustment. What's wrong with the car? Oh, we have
on the pits.
Scott Brayton has apparently overshot his pit. Or he may have had an engine problem. Anyway, they're pushing the car.
Bobby is getting out of
behind the wall, it appears. That's John Andretti in the green car right ahead of Scott Brayton. They do indeed push Brayton's car behind the wall. Okay, let's talk about Rick Mears' pit stop when we come back from this commercial break. Emerson Fittipaldi is the leader of the race. Mario Andretti second, and Al Unser Sr. is third. We'll be right back. With 66 laps completed in the Marlboro, Michigan 500, the leader is Emerson Fittipaldi by about a second over Mario Andretti. Rick Mears has dropped to 6th position because of a pit stop. Now, we were going to talk about that pit stop before we went to commercial. Let's do it right now. He changed tires on the right side, and they made a wing adjustment. What's that tell you, Steve?
Well, from what I can see from here, when he started getting in traffic, he slowed down. So what that tells me is, after watching them put front wing into the car and change the right side tires, they tried to put a little more stagger. Maybe they had a little bigger right rear tire to put on, plus a little more front wing, which would stick the front end a little tighter. Now, maybe in traffic, he can run as fast as he was by himself.
He's also off sequence on pit stops. In other words, he's not probably going to be pitting when everybody else comes in. What factor can that play?
Well, if the yellow flags, if there are more, fall in his favor, it could put him back in the driver's seat very easily. He could run many more laps before he has to come in than the other cars. Sometimes it works in your favor, sometimes it doesn't. Depends upon how the race unfolds.
His speed on the tri-oval here, the so-called front stretch at Michigan International Speedway, was really pretty good the last time around, so it doesn't appear as if the car has slowed down in any manner whatsoever. Rick now just trying to get back on the lead lap and put himself back in contention for the win. There's the leader of the race, Emerson Fittipaldi, and now he is stretching it out a little bit on Mario Andretti by almost 3 seconds. While we're watching the action on the track, Teo Fabi has been in and out of the pits. They're working on that car. John Andretti remains in the pits. He has a spark box problem. And also, here's Emerson Fittipaldi making a pit stop on lap number 69. Gary Lee is there.
This is a routine pit stop as the Pat Patrick crew goes to work. The two-time world driving champion stopped right on the money. This will be a 4-tire change. Remember, Emo and the crew elected not to change tires on the first stop. It still will be a very quick stop as they drop the car, spray it with water, and just over 14 seconds he is underway. A very good stop for Emerson Fittipaldi.
He's a man in a hurry, Steve. He got the car sideways pulling out of the pits. That can also be a problem if you go out of there too quickly.
It could be a problem, but that's the 10-10s we're talking about. He is 110% going for it. His car felt so good to him, he wanted to get back out as soon as he can. Now the question is, will his car operate exactly the same with new tires? When they scuff the tires in and size the tires and get the best tires and sets for each pit stop, they hope to do that. So now the story will tell if his tires are the same.
Mario Andretti moving to the inside of the number 85 car, driven by Gordon Johncock as he goes another lap down. Gordy ran very, very strong in the opening laps, but is now settled back and has shown 2 laps down to the leaders as they cross the stripe this time. Stephen, car number 71 also. We talk about 10-tenths, a driver giving that much on the racetrack. We find that pit crew members also give 10-tenths. Watch this Scott Brayton car there on the left of your screen.
Well, you know, these mechanics that work on these cars, they are so involved. They give 110% every time they go out. And he was trying to be as fast and do the best job he could, and he just got tangled up with his feet because he's running out there and he's looking for something, trying to find something, and those things happen when you're 110% all the time.
Hart tells us that member of Scott Brayton's pit crew is being treated for a foot injury. Nothing real serious, though. First and second position right here. Mario Andretti has once again caught the leader of the race, Emerson Fittipaldi. However, Mario Andretti, we anticipate making a pit stop in just a very short while for tires. He drops to the inside of the track, but will go at least one more lap before he comes in for a tire change.
We've got Mario leading now. When he comes in for just a tire change, whether he thinks those tires are good enough to save for later or whether he thinks he needs new tires is something that we'll have to find out from the crew.
Bobby Rahal is in the pits. He was running in 4th position when he came in for this stop. The True Sports crew going to work on that car. They've completed the work already, and Bobby Rahal goes back into contention.
These are nice wide pits here, Bob. When you come out of the pit area, you look once in your mirror, your crewman gives you the signal it's clear, and you have a lot of room, and that's why you can afford to get sideways leaving these pits.
There you can see that Bobby Rahal also staying below that yellow line through the first and second corners. Now he blends into the traffic going down the backstretch. Mario Andretti, the leader. Emerson Fittipaldi has made his second pit stop of the afternoon. Mario Andretti will be coming in this time around. He drops that Kmart sponsored Lola low on the racetrack. He gets off the accelerator, stands on the brakes, and brings it in pit road for his second routine stop of the afternoon. Mario Andretti from Nazareth, Pennsylvania, brings the car to a halt. Larry Nuber is there.
Well, Bob, Tyler Alexander is over the wall. Don Henderson told me the reason why Mario didn't come in the first 3 times he was asked to do so. He radioed in, I want to stay out here until the light tells me to come in. There's that red light in the dash that Chessie can talk to you about that tells you when the fuel is dangerously low. Mario, as usual, stops in 14.7 seconds, a typical pit stop for this crew. And as usual, Mario refused the drink bottle despite the very, very warm weather down here.
Well, Mario told us earlier that it's just a matter of watching your diet and conditioning yourself for a 500-mile race here at Michigan. And you can, by golly, do it without drinking an excessive amount of fluid. But boy, Steve, especially on a day like today when the temperature is up around 90 degrees and there's hot sunshine, it's got to be very draining on a body, isn't it?
It is draining. But if you take enough fluids in, you don't have to drink. And I think it's not a bad habit, but it's just a habit to take a drink every time you make a pit stop. If you don't have to, you have time to think about more things, and it can possibly save time in a pit stop.
Al Unser Sr. is a leader right now. Here is Michael Andretti in the pits as the Craco team works on his car. They're changing rubber all around and loading the car with fuel. They've completed work on the right side of the race car, and now the car goes down off the Jackson. Michael Andretti has successfully completed his second pit stop and roars back into competition. Al Unser Sr., who has been among the last to pit here, is the leader of the race with Danny Sullivan running second and Emerson Fittipaldi third in the Marlboro, Michigan 500. Unser Sr., who was a leader of the race, comes in for a pit stop. And once again, Larry Nuber is right there to report the action.
Well, Al comes in almost carefully. He is very cool customer, I'll tell you. Al Unser Sr., the man who has won 4 Indianapolis 500s, has a reputation that's well-deserved of being completely in control of his emotions at all times behind the wheel of a race car. They come in with a very quick pit stop. They spend 13.8 seconds, take on some new tires, and reload the car with fuel, and Al Unser is back out in the middle of it.
Larry, right behind the Rick Mears pit. Roberto Guerrero has been in the pits for a long time. Now they're getting the car fired and rolling it out. Any idea what might be wrong with Roberto?
No, Bob, we don't, but we'll take your cue and walk over there and see exactly what's going on. We've been bouncing back and forth between Mario and Al Sr.
Well, there has been a rash of pit stops here in the last 4 or 5 laps, but everybody now, and Johnny Rutherford has stalled on the racetrack, and we do not see a caution flag. He is well off the racetrack. A little surprised, however, that there is no caution here. This car is down in turn number 1, just beyond the exit to the pits, and the CART safety vehicle is there, but Johnny Rutherford has pulled off of the racetrack.
He's still in the car. Or is that him? That's him standing right there. Okay, he's looking for something in there. What do you suppose he's looking for? Talking on the radio to his crew, maybe?
Well, could be.
I would think he is talking to his crew.
Well, this is certainly a big disappointment for A.J. Foyt, who is watching this telecast this afternoon from his home in Houston. A.J. is 10th in points going into this Marlboro, Michigan 500 and wanted so badly to gain some points for this race. We hope he'll be back for Pocono in 2 weeks. Larry, you can report now on Roberto Guerrero.
Yeah, Bob, rather interesting. I talked with Vince Granatelli. He went right back to the radio with Roberto. They're having a lot of conversation right now. And you know what's happened? Roberto has improved his speed during the running of this race. He has gone 7 miles an hour faster than what they expected to do in terms of the pace during this 500-miler. They didn't really anticipate that, and as a consequence, they began to use up fuel more rapidly than they anticipated, more rapidly than they used it up all weekend long. So he ran out of fuel, and the car coasted down the pit road. They, of course, they had to restart it after they refueled it, and that's what took the normally longer time.
Well, that's rather interesting. Here's another guy that has something to prove. In addition to Emerson Fittipaldi, Roberto Guerrero has something to prove because, as many of you know, he has been on a vacation, a holiday for the last 2 races. Just wanted to get away from the sport. But he's back now for this race and doing a very, very fine job. Right behind Roberto Guerrero with our in-car Valvoline camera is Al Unser Jr.
Look at the speed that draft gives Little Al. He's got a Chevrolet engine compared to a Cosworth. That's one thing. But also that draft, he gives the second car a tow. And then once you break out, you've built the speed up, and you can go on by the car in front.
The number 77 car of Phil Kruger right ahead, now to the left side of Al Unser Jr. as he successfully passes Bill Kruger, setting the car into the 18 degrees of banking now onto the very flat backstretch.
Isn't it amazing, Bob, when you watch his head bounce around and you look at the suspension where it says Stroh on the right front, it barely moves. When he goes in the corner, it goes up, and it doesn't move much. We have a yellow, Bob.
Yellow flag is out. I suspect, I don't see anything else, I suspect this might be for the A.J. Foyt car driven by Johnny Rutherford. It's still down there on the inside of the racetrack in the infield in turn number 1, but to get it to a safe location, they're going to have to throw the caution and bring everybody in. Johnny Rutherford is in the car. We're going to try to talk to him on the radio here. Johnny, this is Bob. You copy me? Apparently in conversation with the crew as they want to know. Oh, we have a fire in the pits. Looks like it's a Randy Lewis car. Just a momentary fire has broken out. Randy is trying to get out of that race car and is having difficulty, it appears. He's trying to get out with apparently not unhooking the radio. Everything appears to be okay. Remember, back in 1981, there was a tremendous pit fire here triggered by the Herm Johnson team. And that was one of the most horrifying scenes in all of racing that I can remember. And CART has made some improvements and some regulations regarding water in the pit area and several other things to make sure that that never happens again. Emerson Fittipaldi is in the pit area for a stop. We'll probably see a lot of pit stops here during this caution period that has come out on lap number 87. Once again, M.O. squealing the tires, moving back out.
He's going for it 110%. That's what he is, you know, he led this race, and now he knows he can win this race, so he's not going to give up any time leaving the pits. He's going to give all he can. On that fire on Randy Lewis's car, sometimes what happens with the engine and the turbo and everything being so hot, when the vent man pulls out, if there's anything, residual fuel that comes out, it runs on anything hot and it just ignites instantaneously.
Well, there are a lot of safety precautions, not only in the pit area, but on the racetrack when there is an accident, when there's a potential catastrophic problem. Here's Gary Lee.
The Michigan track has always been characterized as fast and dangerous. In 1984, Chip Ganassi and Al Unser Jr. got together, triggering this violent crash. Ganassi suffered head injuries. Al Jr. was uninjured. Near the end of the race, Pancho Carter hit some dirty air trying to pass Rick Mears. He then slammed the outside wall, came back across the track, and rode out a wild series of gyrations. However, due to carbon fiber technology, the tub containing the cockpit held together. The driver was uninjured. In fact, Pancho would climb out and walk away to play golf the next day to work out the stiffness. In 1985, Michigan would bite again. This time, Danny Ungaius rides out a vicious tumble as the car slides down the straightaway. The tires tuck under, throwing the car into a series of barrel rolls. But again, the car holds together, the cockpit is intact, and the driver was uninjured. But as the car comes to a stop, the Horton safety crew response truck pulls up to lend assistance. Carl Horton has been described by Mario Andretti as a man not satisfied with the status quo, and for that reason, the mobile medical facilities at a CART race are state-of-the-art. Now, Carl, you've driven race cars, you've owned race cars, you've sponsored race cars. Let's go back to the beginning. How'd this all happen?
Well, we've been racing for years and felt that while we were enjoying the sport very much, we ought to be putting something back into it. So we looked at the needs that we have at the many racetracks we go to and felt that we could provide a medical service as well as fire and rescue that would complement the series. I was stimulated by the 1981 race at Michigan, at the Michigan 500, and I saw some things happen there that we just had to get in and help correct, and we had the expertise and the interest, and so we went right after it.
The key word here is program. We have 22 professional people and 5 state-of-the-art vehicles, and together this organization covers everything from impact to recovery, and by that we mean from the first time there's an incident on the racetrack, whatever the nature of that incident might be, through and including any stabilization on the racetrack, firefighting, extrication, cleanup of the scene, transporting to our Horton Safety Center for further stabilization, transportation to a medical definitive care facility, and ultimately through recovery. We're able to touch all the bases, so to speak, through our people and our equipment.
We're going to bring him from the track scene by ambulance bring the gurney he's on up the ramp into the Horton unit and bring him to the back where we have our major trauma area. At that point, we're going to start assessing what's wrong with him, start oxygen, put electrocardiogram monitor leads on him. We have anti-shock trousers already on the gurney, and we'll decide at that point whether we need to apply them or not, and essentially find out how badly he is injured. At this point, when we're bringing him in, we don't know. We have a cervical collar on him when we bring him in, but we take it off in order to remove his driver's suit. But somebody's always at the head, keeping the neck and head stable. Certain things we wouldn't bring in here, like a severe head injury right at the scene, we would most likely transport directly to the hospital. The severe burn, we'd most likely transport directly to a hospital, although we do have the capabilities of cooling burns at the scene and in here. Those are the kind of things we'd rather see go directly to a hospital.
The relationship between us and the drivers, I think, is extremely important. It's the intangible that a lot of people don't see, but there's a great mutual respect. We respect them for what they do, but at the same time, I think they have a great deal of respect and a comfort level by our being there. At least we hope they do. And a couple of years ago, we were honored to be named honorary members of the Championship Drivers Association. And I think that sums it up right there, that they have enough respect for us to make us a part of their organization. So it's a mutual thing.
Although a driver hopes he never has to use the facilities, in the dangerous world of IndyCar racing, it's a comforting thought to know the Horton safety team is always present.
Well, the Horton safety unit has already been used in this race. Keith Badger was the injured member of Scott Brayton's crew. He's being treated there for a possible broken ankle. Back with more after this. Steve Chassie, Gary Lee, and Larry Nuber back at Michigan International Speedway for the Marlboro 500. 97 laps been completed, and Bobby Rahal is the leader of this race. Al Unser Sr. is second, and Rick Mears third. Tom Sneva has pulled into the pit area, and there's a lot of smoke coming from that car as Tom Sneva unstraps and climbs out of his vehicle. So it doesn't look good for Tom Sneva for the rest of this race. Let's recap what's happened so far in this event. It began early as Al Unser Jr. had trouble just after the green flag dropped. The car came to a halt in turn number 3. They brought him in for some work. He's back in the race. Look at Emerson Fittipaldi on the inside of the racetrack go into the lead, passing Mario Andretti and Rick Mears. And when he came out of the pits, he got the car a little bit sideways. He's a man that wants to win this Marlboro 500. Just a few minutes ago, Randy Lewis's car caught fire in the pit area. Randy climbed out, however, and is okay. And so that's where we are to this point. Bobby Rahal is in the lead by about 3 seconds over Al Unser Sr. Rick Mears is third. Danny Sullivan runs fourth. Emerson Fittipaldi is fifth. Mario Andretti, Michael Andretti, Derek Daly, Gordon Johncock, and Roberto Guerrero are in the second 5. Bobby Rahal is very impressive to me, Steve.
He impressed me the first race he won here. He came his first year and was supposed to be a road course specialist, and he's done just absolutely wonderful on ovals, and it's just because there's a talent there that some people don't possess, and he has all the talent to be a champion.
And when the green flag came out just a little bit ago, he just shot like a rocket into the lead and separated himself from everybody else by a huge distance. However, now, Al Unser is beginning to move in.
Al Unser is beginning to move in, but he's also being challenged by Rick Mears. They're running real close, and I think Rick might have his car back in tune and can get back up to his front-running speed that he had at the opening.
There's the second place car, the yellow one. Rick Mears running behind Al Unser Sr. right here, the number 60 car driven by Al Unser Sr., who started this race in second position. And now he has clear racetrack between himself and the leader, Bobby Rahal. And there in the wide shot, we saw a shot also of Rick Mears. Let's go to Gary Lee for this report.
Steve Horn is the team manager, vice president of True Sports, the two-time defending national champions. I think we could characterize your season this year as being consistent, not glitzy, but you've been making steady gains with the Judd. You say you have a new Judd, and in fact, more horsepower this weekend.
Well, I think we're making some gains. I think we've got a few more to make yet with the motor, but we're definitely making progress. And, you know, right now these guys are racing at 2:16, and that's really fast.
But the consistency factor, you have finished every race and you're very much in the points hunt.
Yeah, I think it's a real tight battle for the championship. You know, we got to keep finishing and keep winning, but I think we're starting to make some gains competitively.
Let's go up pit road now to Larry Nuber.
Well, Gary, Steve, and Bob, this is the second-generation Judd engine. This engine just came out a couple of weeks ago, and Steve Horn told me before the race started today they're getting more horsepower out of this engine than they have any other this year. Also, it was earlier reported in a nationally published newspaper that Steve Horn was quoted as saying, just because we distribute the Judd engines, that does not mean we have to use them. Well, that was not an accurate quote. He called that a misquote, and he says that they will be using the Judd engines next year, no matter what.
Roberto Guerrero has a problem. The car is very, very slow through the fourth turn now, and Roberto Guerrero, who ran out of fuel a few minutes ago and spent some time in the pit area before they could get the car refired, is headed for the pit area once again, but this time it appears to be something much more serious than just a loss of fuel.
Looks as though he's coasting, and he's almost to the pit entrance. He may get in. He's in far enough now, they won't bring a yellow out, even if he doesn't make it to his pits. Then his crew can come down, pick him up, and push him back to his pit. Now, running out of fuel, you know, from up here it's hard to tell, but out of fuel could burn a piston. He's going behind the fence.
Look at the battle for the lead. Senior in the yellow car low, Rahal in the red car high. Look at the lap traffic that may play a factor. Al Unser Sr. goes into the lead.
Al had the right place in the traffic, plus he had the horsepower. He didn't need the drag, the pull, I should say, from the cars in front of him. He just went down to the inside. The Chevrolet horsepower took over and drove right on by.
The master is at work again. Al Unser Sr. Never count him out of a race on this kind of a track. Here it is once again.
He's on the inside, and he gets a little bit of a drag. Then he comes out to the inside, and he goes right on by. And for some reason, Bobby Rahal, oh, there it is right there. Bobby got stuck behind traffic entering the first turn.
And now Rick Mears has also moved by Bobby Rahal, so the Penske cars are first and second once again, with Rahal dropping back to third spot. And we understand it is a motor problem that has plagued Roberto Guerrero. And Al Unser Jr.'s problems continue also as he watches on the racetrack his father really battling for the lead, but there's serious problems with Al Unser Jr.
Well, obviously we thought this was the routine second stop because he was out of that sequence because of the early stop that they made with engine problems. He pulls in, the rear has been taken off the car, there's a scramble around the back. Again, a question mark over perhaps, is it ignition, wiring, or is it the engine itself? Rick Gallas, can you tell us what the problem is this time?
We think it relates back to this electrical thing we're fighting, so we're just going to have to see.
Again, perhaps the same problem that sidelined him, or almost sidelined him, early in this competition.
All right, so Rick Mears now second to Al Unser Sr. as Al Unser Jr. sits in the pits. We can update you on the Johnny Rutherford story. He had a small fire in the engine compartment, pulled the car off the racetrack, got out of it, and then he decided that he would get a tow back to the pit area. He came by here and they hooked up his cool suit. Johnny Rutherford is okay in A.J. Foyt's car. Al Unser, Rick Mears, Bobby Rahal, Danny Sullivan, and Emerson Fittipaldi after 108 laps of the Marlboro 500.
Boris Becker has something to prove.
Marlboro, Michigan 500 today on ESPN. And Bobby Rahal is in the pits. Gary Lee reports.
Bobby Rahal is here. It's going to be fuel only. They're happy with the tire status, but he has a problem exiting his pit because of the car right in front. He has a little trouble engaging the gear. He clears Al Unser Jr. and he is underway. Bobby Rahal slides the rear end down the pit area.
And that drops him to 6th position now after having been up in the top 3 or 4. So Bobby Rahal joins the race once again in 6th position. The leader is Rick Mears in car number 5. He has passed his teammate Al Unser to go into the lead and has stretched out about a 1.5 second advantage over Al Unser. Danny Sullivan is third. Fittipaldi is 4th, and Mario is in 5th. So we have the Penske cars running 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Rick Mears would like to win this race because it would give him the 2nd jewel in auto racing's Triple Crown for 1988. If he wins today, it will be his 3rd consecutive 500-mile victory because he won last year's Pocono race, of course Indianapolis this year, and possibly today.
That's right, Bob. You know, there's a story being told here about the Chevrolet engine. The first 5 cars in this race are on Chevrolet engines. The only thing that, I mean, they have the speed. We can see that. The longevity, and they seem to have that. So it looks to me as though we have changing of the times again now. After the domination Cosworth had for so long, I see the makings of a Chevrolet domination.
And the 6th place car, driven by Bobby Rahal, that is a Judd engine. So the Cosworths really aren't showing very much here. Emerson Fittipaldi is showing some vapor and smoke from the rear end of that car, and he has been given the black flag. So that will bring in our 4th place competitor, Emerson Fittipaldi. You can see the smoke coming from the rear end of that car. It's not real obvious, but indeed there is some smoke coming from it, and the CART officials have determined that it is enough to bring the car in and have it checked. Emerson Fittipaldi coming by right now and receiving the black flag from Nick Finaro, the official starter for championship auto racing teams, and next time Emerson Fittipaldi should be coming in. And there you can see the CART official who will be observing that car when it comes in. What will they be looking for?
Well, I don't know. From our viewpoint, I didn't see a lot of smoke, like a turbo or a piston or something gone wrong. It could be a very, very minute oil leak that may take just one twist of a wrench. But if the car comes in and they look at it and it's wet at all, they will have to make it right.
Well, he has not heeded that black flag, staying out there on the racetrack, and they'll allow him to do that for a few laps. After giving him the black flag for 2 or 3 or 4 laps, they'll say, okay, Emerson, you're no longer scored, and you have received the penalty anyway. So Emerson Fittipaldi will have to heed that black flag.
Well, here's the 10-10s we're talking about all day. He knows he's black flag. He hates to come in. He knows he can win this race. So he'll use the rules to the limit. He'll take every lap they'll give him on the black flag. So now he'll come in and they'll take a look. He doesn't want to, but he will.
We've had a change of position for 2nd. Danny Sullivan right there is past Al Unser Sr., and so Danny Sullivan has moved into 2nd position, dropping Al Unser back to 3rd.
This could be tires, you know. I mean, all you have to do is change tires on these cars, and it makes a world of difference, like Rick Mears.
Fittipaldi has come in for the check of the race car, and now he goes back out and will await word from our pit reporters on what they found out in that check of the race car, whether there indeed is an oil leak or something serious enough that would keep Emerson in the pit area. But for right now, he is back out onto the racetrack.
Bob, it's so very difficult to come out of these pits, especially in a situation like this, where I'm sure his temperature is up a little bit, to stay below that yellow line because it's so rough and the car wiggles and bounces around. But to get out there as fast as you can, that's the name of the game. And you take a chance on dropping a line over a wheel over the line. And as you saw, he stayed below it until the blend line. That was an excellent job.
And we have seen how Danny Sullivan has suffered from those pit exit violations. He is into the pit area right now, Danny Sullivan is, because Danny was penalized for putting all 4 tires over the exit line in Toronto. He was given a stop-and-go penalty for that. Sullivan now completing repairs and completing the pit stop, we should say, and going back out into competition. We're almost halfway through this race, and there goes the leader, Rick Mears, by Danny Sullivan. In 4 more laps, we will have reached the halfway point. And really, this race is moving along very, very nicely. We have had some caution periods, but there have been no accidents on the racetrack to this point, and let's hope that that continues for the second half of the race. It appears as if Rick Mears is going to be making a pit stop. Indeed, that car slowing, coming off the 18 degrees of banking in turn number 4, and Rick Mears is coming in for another pit stop.
Here comes Mr. Mears, the winner of this year's Indianapolis 500-mile race, into the pit area. They're going to work on all 4 of the corners. 4 tires are being changed. Teammate Al Sr. battling with Rick for the lead in this 500-milers pitting behind him. A full load of fuel. Rick Mears is back down on the ground. Another one of those uneventful and clockwork Roger Penske pit stops. I'm looking a little bit to my right, your left. There's Al Unser Sr. pulling out, and he too has a very nice mid-race pit stop here as they continue to be among the leaders of this race here at the Michigan International Speedway.
While Al Unser and Rick Mears go back out onto the racetrack, Emerson Fittipaldi has come in again, and there is something seriously wrong with that car. He didn't have any power when he came off the fourth corner, so that smoke that was seen from the rear end of that race car and that he was brought in to the pit area for apparently has resulted in something pretty serious.
Couldn't tell what it was when they turned the rear end. They're looking for something.
The lead goes to Mario Andretti. We understand that it is a blown motor on the Emerson Fittipaldi car. Gary Lee.
We went up to Jim McGee. I said, is it ignition? He simply shrugged his shoulders. He was black flag. That wisp of smoke we saw earlier was from oil in the gearbox area. Car let him go back out, but apparently the Chevrolet power plant has expired. We'll give Emo a chance to climb out, catch his breath, and we'll talk to him about a very successful, spectacular, but short ride this afternoon.
Boy, Emerson has looked so good in so many races this year, but has been plagued with one problem after another, whether it be a mechanical problem or the unfortunate incident he had with Al Unser Jr. at the Meadowlands. But boy, Emerson has been right up there every race, and he is the only driver of a Chevrolet engine that has not won an IndyCar race this year. As we indicated, the lead now goes to Mario Andretti, with Rick Mears running in second position and Danny Sullivan in third, and we anticipate a pit stop momentarily from Mario Andretti.
You see, Mario came from somewhere back around sixth spot in that last pit stop exchange. By staying out, he is now leading the race. Now, whether it says he's getting better fuel mileage or whether the timing of their pit stops is off is hard to tell until the end of the race.
Can this fuel management system that Mario is using play any part in this whole thing?
Oh, it could make a big part, because it can make a big change in your strategy. If you can run a few more laps than someone else, then you have the opportunity to make the brakes come your way if something should happen.
So we watch now the pit stop by Mario Andretti. Clockwork-like work by this team. Tires are already changed. There's the leader, Rick Mears, in the backstretch. Mario's work completed. Rick is on the backstretch, so Mario is definitely going to stay on the lead lap here as he builds up the momentum. Mears moving through the fourth corner as we speak. And we'll watch Mario pull onto the racing surface. There he goes down the backstretch. Gary Lee has moved in now, and he is with Emerson Fittipaldi.
Emo, your victory here 3 years ago was somewhat of a surprise to some of us, but your competition today was not a surprise. Was there any indication there was an engine problem? You were black flagged, you came in, they checked for oil, sent you back out.
You know, Gary, my car was handling beautiful, and I'm really disappointed. It was just they saw some smoke on the back, and I had to come in, and then James just sees.
There was a lot of traffic out there you guys were battling through. Were there any problems in getting through the slower cars?
No, it was very good. My Marlboro car was really handling well. I had good power, very good grip around the corners, and the car was great. I did a mistake when I should come in on the pits when the yellow was out, and I lost the lead, but you know, I was going to give a hard time to the leaders.
There was some concern about track conditions. It's been very hot, very humid here in the Michigan area. How are the conditions?
Oh, it's hot for the engine, hot for the driver, but you know, it was cooler running there than hot in the pit.
Well, he's hot right now and also very disappointed.
But he can take a cool drink and begin to relax now as the Marlboro 500 is over for Emerson Fittipaldi. But it continues on lap number 129. We'll be back. ESPN's flag-to-flag coverage of the Marlboro, Michigan 500 from Michigan International Speedway is 132 laps old. And Rick Mears from Bakersfield, California, the winner of the Indianapolis 500-mile race this year, leads here at Michigan with about an 8-second advantage over his teammate, Danny Sullivan, and the other Penske car about 13 seconds behind in third, driven by Al Unser. Let's run down the top 16 positions as we have them right now. Fourth is Bobby Rahal. Fifth is Mario Andretti. Sixth, Michael Andretti. Derek Daly is seventh. Then Gordon Johncock, Raul Boesel, Tony Bettenhausen, and Phil Kruger. 12th is Rich Vogler. 13th, Dick Simon. 14th is John Jones. Emerson Fittipaldi is out of the race in 15th. And Billy Vukovich III is in 16th position. But, of course, Billy will continue to move up now because Emerson has dropped out of competition. Al Unser Jr. has fallen from the contention with a broken water hose, the same problem he had in a practice session yesterday. And Al Unser Jr. had problems from the very beginning of the race. Now it's all over officially for him.
You know, Bob, Emerson said something that doesn't get alluded to very often, how very important communication is between the pits and the driver. He said he stayed out that extra lap and didn't come in on the yellow, and it cost him the lead of the race. Now, in the race strategy, the team manager knows when to come in, and he'll tell his driver. And if the driver is down looking at his gauges or not watching the pit board or the radios don't work and he misses that communication, it could happen like it did to Emerson, and he lost the lead in the race.
Well, staying on the lead now is Rick Mears, and he is having no apparent problems out there. This is his 141st IndyCar start. And as we mentioned earlier, his best finish here in a Michigan 500 has been a third in 1981 and in 84. Now, he started this race from the pole position, and that broke a tie that he was in with A.J. Foyt for number of pole positions in a 500-mile race. Rick Mears now has 11, A.J. Foyt 10th, and A.J., you are watching, I know, from your home in Houston, so you're not being here lost a record for you here this weekend. We are more than halfway through this race with the event moving along quite nicely, as a matter of fact. And now let's examine this pit stop efficiency graphic.
Well, as you can see, Danny Sullivan has done the best job as far as the driver's portion of it, getting in the pits and out of the pits. But then Mario has had the best crew work. So the best crew work and a little bit slower in and out time still gives him the quickest total time in the pits.
Danny Sullivan, as you can see, had a faster entry and exit, but the crew took 15.25 seconds. So our pit stop efficiency being presented by Signature Inn, and giving you a little deeper insight into exactly what happens during the pit stop, not only by the pit crew who do the actual work on the car, but also the driver himself.
Another thing you can notice, although Rick Mears had the second or third slowest total time in the pits, his driving on the racetrack has him in the lead. Sometimes they win the races by their pit work, but today it appears that he's doing it by his driving.
Johnny Rutherford slows on the racetrack for the second time this afternoon. He stalled once over in turn number 1. Now he is in turn number 3, limping toward the pit area. The car is moving quite slowly, and I'm not sure that he's going to be able to make it around.
You know, these cars, they have a locked rear end, which means it's like a solid rear axle. Sometimes on some courses, they'll run an open rear end with a one-wheel drive. And on the cars with a one-wheel drive, one of the reasons they do that is because they coast so much further. The little bit of stagger in these cars requires a drag on the left rear tire because the right rear tire is bigger. It's traveling more distance.
Well, as we watch Johnny Rutherford try to get to the pit area, let's go for a report on the Al Unser Jr. situation.
Well, halfway may have gone by very quickly for those people at home watching, but it was a very long half of the race for you, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, we ran into trouble there right at the beginning of the race, and I guess
we have a crash, Larry.
The day, you know,
Al, we have a crash out on the racetrack. If you'd stand by, we'll find out exactly who it was. We understand it's Derek Daly.
It is indeed. He has crashed between turns 3 and 4. He has damaged the right side of that race car, torn the tires off of it, and This occurred in just about the same area of the racetrack that Derek had a devastating crash a few years ago, not in a 500, but in a race here at Michigan International. And let's hope that Derek is okay. Here's a replay, Steve.
Well, we pick him up when he's already against the wall. Now, the way the car was against the wall square, it looks as though it may have just pushed up to the wall. What caused that could have been a flat tire, or it could have been possibly some liquid on the racetrack. But when it goes in almost flat sideways like that, you could say it's something caused a push. The car didn't turn.
And you can also breathe a sigh of relief, because hitting at that angle, you can bet that the driver isn't going to be injured as badly as he would have had he gone in head first. And we have a spin in the pit area. Al Unser Sr. has spun coming in. He just came in too hot. The car is sideways, actually in the exit lanes of the pits. Rick Mears, his teammate, is, as you can see, moving out onto the racetrack and back in competition. But Al Unser Sr. makes a very uncharacteristic mistake here and just brings it in too hot to the pit area. Now they're going to have to jack up the rear end of the car and move it around in the right direction on the jack.
And I'm sure he stalled the engine also when he did that, Bob. So the starter will come over the fence while they're refueling. There it comes.
There's Bobby Rahal, who is also into the pits. Now, this isn't a real devastating problem for Al, because, of course, we are under yellow, so it certainly isn't going to mean as much as it would have if we were under green.
You can see the streak of oil down.
Oh, look at this. Bobby Rahal has lost a side pod on the right side of that car.
Whether it came off in the pit stop or the racetrack, we're not sure.
How does that affect the aerodynamics of the car?
Tremendously, because now the wind doesn't come over the body, come smooth back across the tail section to the rear wing. It could make the car real loose.
All right, so we are under caution because of a crash, the first of the afternoon, involving Derek Daly between turns 3 and 4. Owner of these three cars in the race with Mears, Al Unser Sr. and Danny Sullivan is asking some questions as to what happened to Al Unser when he spun in pit road. Rick Mears has already made his stop. Danny Sullivan has already made his most recent stop. And, of course, Al Unser Sr. is now back out on the racetrack. Roger Penske owns this facility. He's a race driver, race owner. Here's our story of Roger.
If I'm not busy, really I'm not motivated, whether it's my business, whether it's a race. And I've told people that the champagne and getting excited, maybe I'm through that, but inside when we win a race, it's good for our people. It's a common thread through our organization, because racing really says it all. And if you want to win, you've got to work the hardest.
Just Roger's July schedule is indicative of the rest of his year. Found from Canada to Japan on any given day, we caught up with Roger at the Gary Newman McDonald's Corporation dinner in New York City.
Well, I think as you go through your life, you work hard to try to achieve certain goals, but again, we all want to help people. I think that whether it's someone that works for me in our plant that has a problem, you want to know about it, you want to help them, because along the way someone has helped you. And these young kids today, when you think about Ray Kroc and McDonald's and the commitment and Jerry Newman is just fantastic. What they've done, hundreds of these Ronald McDonald houses across the country, and what they're doing for kids. We need to be part of that, and I think it's important that every one of us someday look in the mirror and say, we've got to help somebody else.
The nearby Jackson, Michigan Country Club serves as the host for Penske's Michigan 500 Pro-Am Golf Tournament. Drivers and golf pros are invited each year to help raise funds for the Foot Memorial Hospital, which serves the Michigan International Speedway during the race season, as well as the community.
Yes, I think, it's especially very special when we know the proceeds go to a hospital, and I think I probably have more experience in that area than anybody, so it's, whenever we can help that way as well, we do it with a lot of pleasure.
He's got about 28 or 30 pros here, and he's going to fly them back to Memphis so they can, enter that tournament in the next day or two, and it's a big commitment, and the fact that he's willing to do that, it's fun for me.
I really look at this as an opportunity for the Speedway people in racing to get together with the community, which is most important as you see at Indianapolis, the way the community turns out, for that race.
The Penske Empire Transportation Services includes a retail automotive branch, and under automotive performances, the race team and speedway ownership. Although revenue is the smallest there, Roger emphasizes auto racing is that common thread that links his entire corporation. The new Detroit Diesel is one of his latest acquisitions.
What we try to do is work with our people. We try to lead them, and you've got to do that by your key people having the ability to do what you ask those people under you to do, and I think that's most important. We don't drive them by intimidation. I think we try to lead our people, whether it's working on a pit stop to try to make it faster, and we take the best people and let everyone really try to excel to their capabilities. Too many times people are pushed too far, or we have the wrong people in the wrong slot, and I think we've had the ability over the years to pick the right people. Too many people, when they get heavy successful in business, forget that the man on the line, you know, that middle guard or that tackle is more important sometimes than the quarterback. And we've tried over the years to have all our people really be the same. And as I said before, I hope I'm welcome in their homes, and they're certainly welcome in mine. Anybody that's putting in a good, hard day for us, you got to feel that way.
But the Roger Penske we are most familiar with is this one, the man who runs the show for Rick Mears and Danny Sullivan.
Green, 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 green. Plus 11. Plus 11. Nice and easy. We are tight on fuel. We are tight on fuel. Do you read? Stay out and pack up. Oh, come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Okay, keep going, and that's okay. That's okay. 10-4, 10-4. Hey! Hold that, hold that. Hey, we're coming in too. We're coming in ahead of you, so don't get him in our way. For Allen, Virginia, good job.
It's a pretty professional group. In fact, more professional than people think about. We haven't had the drug problems. We haven't had a lot of the issues that have come up in other type sports, and we need to get that across to the public, that we've got a good, clean sport. A lot of businessmen are in there. They know how to win. They want to win, and they're going to do what it takes, and that's going to keep the sport healthy. Sure, we don't have the number of cars that we had in the past, but again, we need to have a clean field that can run fast, and when you look at the results, look at the different drivers that have won races since the beginning of the year. Look at the quality of the cars. And I've said before, it's competitive out there. And we want Porsche to come, and we want Ferrari, and we want McLaren, because what you do, that makes you work all the harder. And there's no free license because you won the race last week that gives you the license to win next week. You start all at ground zero. That's why I like to be in racing.
Story of the guy who has to be one of the busiest people in all of the world. Roger Penske owns this facility and, of course, has brought 3 cars here this weekend that are currently running first, second, and third, Mears, Sullivan, and Al Unser Sr. They are cleaning up the Derek Daly accident in turns number 3 and 4. The yellow is still out. We'll be right back. From Michigan International Speedway near Brooklyn, Michigan, Speed World's coverage of the Marlboro 500. And it's being brought to you by Astrolite Batteries. Astrolite Batteries give you 38 laps are completed out of 250, and we remain under caution as it has taken quite a while to clean up the oil and other liquid that was in the 3rd and 4th turn areas. Now there is Johnny Rutherford, who has again stalled that car. This is at the exit of the pits once again, and Johnny has had all kinds of problems this afternoon. Yes, that is Johnny Rutherford in the number 14 car, owned by A.J. Foyt, who, repeat, is okay. He's been released from the hospital. The diagnosis is a bruised kidney. He hopes to be back for the Pocono 500 in 2 weeks. And there's Johnny Rutherford, who has climbed out of the car and is walking back to the pit area. Well, we had a spin on pit road a few minutes ago involving Al Unser Sr., and we talked about how it was uncharacteristic. Well, there was a good reason for it. Look at that oil that came from the number 56 car. There's a streak of oil, and it was that Al Unser Sr. hit that caused him to spin. Now, we have the spin from the in-car camera of Michael Andretti. Watch way ahead. You can see Allenzer Sr. get sideways and do a 180-degree spin. There he goes, losing control after hitting the oil down there and getting the car sideways.
What a surprise that is. You know, I'm surprised his pit crew didn't on the radio tell him, be careful coming in, oil on the racetrack. So if they had told him that, he would have been much more careful. As it was, he was coming in for a normal pit stop, hit the brakes hard, went to turn in, and the back end of the car just came around.
Well, there's a lot of liquid down on the pit road exit left by the A.J. Foyt car driven by Johnny Rutherford. Now, one of the other things that we questioned before we went to that feature on Roger Penske is why there was a side pod missing on the right side of that car, and it was a very good explanation for that.
There again is strategy from the team manager. They came in, made a stop, and they decided they had to change the spark box. They pulled the side off, and while the cars are getting ready to come around, he went back out without the side pod cover so he wouldn't go down a lap and get behind in the traffic. Came back in, changed the box, put the cover back on, and now he's back out.
There is method to their madness, I guess. But it has kept Bobby Rahal right up there. Rick Mears and Danny Sullivan are first and second. They are the only two cars that are shown on the lead lap, and the lap is number 150. So we have 100 laps to go. They continue to put down some oil dry there outside of the backstretch into turn number 3. Here are the top 10 with 150 laps completed. Back with more after this. I thought we were about to go green because in the actual area of the accident involving Derek Daly, they completed their work, but now they put oil dry down in another section of the racetrack back toward the backstretch more. Now, whose responsibility is it to watch for that oil? Is that something that a driver calls in?
Well, usually they have the track observers, but sometimes from the advantage point they have, they can't see the oil. That's why the PPG organization likes to have an accredited race car driver like Pancho Carter today driving the pace car. I'm almost positive that Pancho was the one that saw the oil as he was going around the racetrack and called it in. They then went out with the truck, found it, and followed that oil groove all the way down in. Now, that gives us an idea also of why Derek hit the wall the way he did, because with the oil starting that far in the corner, he was out of shape before he even got to the point where he hit the wall.
So Derek Daly has crashed, and that has been our only accident of the day. Johnny Rutherford is out of the race, and our Larry Nuber is caught up with him.
Well, Bob, this singed gear just came out of Johnny Rutherford's cockpit and off of Johnny Rutherford's head. You can see it got very warm where Johnny was watching this race from. Johnny, details, what happened?
Well, we made a pit stop and fueled up, and I left, and I got the tires lit up and away good, but as I just before I got ready to shift, running out in first gear, the thing let out a real loud pop and got instantly hot and very hard to breathe in the cockpit, and I knew I had a fire because I had one earlier down at the other end. So something's happening on the refueling with this car that's causing it to unload some fuel inside, and it lights up on the exhaust whenever you stand on it to get out of here, and it was really burning hard. In fact, it feels like I've got to clear my throat all the time now, so I think I've probably snuffed some of the heat, superheated air. But everything's fine. The car, I think, is done for the day because of all of the fire in the back, burn up some wiring. But it was going pretty good until then.
Well, John, this fire notwithstanding, how about the conditions before the fire? It's very warm down here along Pit Road. Yesterday we had a thermometer out on the pavement, and it pegged about 140. As near as we could tell, the meter only went up to 120. Was it warm in the cockpit?
It really wasn't. In fact, I hadn't even thought about turning my cool hat on yet. It was not that bad, and now I might have to with the heat that was in there. But everything was going along well. We were still having the pop-off valve problem. It still at the end was popping off, and I had to run partial throttle, so it was very hard to sit there and nurse that thing at the right spot so it would run full power most of the way. But we were still hurting, and would have, if we could have finished, we might have been up close to the front. But it's the way it goes, AJ.
Well, it's only about a quarter of a mile vertical straight up climb to get to the booth. Ready to go up there?
Well, let me rest for a minute, okay. and then I'll try it.
Okay, Johnny.
Well, we have some consolation for both Johnny Rutherford and you, Larry and Gary, and I know you guys are sweating down there in the pit area, and because the air conditioner is a little noisy, we can't run it up here in the booth, so we're pretty warm too. I just wanted to tell you guys down there in the pits that. The caution remains out. We'll be back for the green and a resumption of the Marlboro 500 after this. Steve Chassie, Gary Lee, and Larry Nuber back at Michigan International Speedway, still under caution because of our only crash of the afternoon so far. With 154 laps completed, Derek Daly pounded the concrete up between turns 3 and 4 and damaged the right side of that car. He was able to climb out under his own power. We're still waiting an official word on if there were any injuries to Derek Daly, but he appeared to not be seriously injured. The situation is we have 2 cars that are on the lead lap, Rick Mears and Danny Sullivan. A lap down, Al Unser, Mario Andretti, and Bobby Rahal. 2 laps down, and 6th is Michael Andretti, then Gordon Johncock, Tony Bettenhausen, Phil Kruger, and Raul Boesel as we go back to green. Now, Al Unser Sr. is at the head of the pack and trying to remain on the same lap, but Rick Mears just went by him. So Rick Mears has the command of this race, and here comes Danny Sullivan in that second position. 3 Penske cars right here together on the racetrack. And Rick has a problem. It appears Rick Mears is slowing down. The car just didn't seem to have any power coming off the second corner, Steve. Any ideas?
You know, like once again, I say you can't tell. If it's a CV joint, he was very fortunate that the car didn't jump sideways. If it's an engine problem, then we'll have to wait and see what happened. But sometimes a CV joint goes off and you come off that little bump over in turn 2.
Well, that's where the problem occurred. Larry Nuber can report.
Well, Rick comes to a stop. It's definitely not engine. The car goes up on the jack. There are a lot of furrowed brows here as they go to work on the Penske Pennzoil C7 Special number 5. They are looking at the CV joint. That is their first suspicion. Rick shuts it off. And a lot of dejected faces now. I see one crewman who's running back toward the garage area. They still have hope of perhaps getting this car back into the race, but any chance that he has for winning is probably gone. Now a little more hope begins to ripple here as Peter Pierre goes over and talks to Roger Penske. You can see Roger there in the white shirt. He's the one not in the fire suit, leaning over the back of the car where if it was a CV joint that went on the tail of the car there, that's the area that would be. And yes, here come the extra pieces. It will be a matter of minutes here before they can determine whether or not they're going to take the time to change it.
Well, let's talk about a CV joint. We know it stands for constant velocity, but what's it do?
Well, it's like a U-joint in a drive shaft. What it does, a CV joint, there's 2 per each side of the car. One next to the gearbox, one out in the upright that drives the wheel. And when one of those breaks, all of a sudden you go from a 2-wheel drive car to a 1-wheel drive car, and it makes the car jump sideways. And sometimes you're lucky, and it's the correct one that breaks, and the car goes to the inside of the racetrack. If the right side breaks, then it's big trouble because it drives the car out to the fence.
We have seen more than one crash caused by a CV joint breaking, but as you indicated, Rick did a fine job at probably speeds well in excess of 200 miles an hour to keep that car from going in either direction. So there's the leader, Danny Sullivan, who now has taken command of this race from his teammate Rick Mears. Al Unser remains in second position, then Mario Andretti and Bobby Rahal. Now, Sullivan is trying to take over the points lead in the PPG standings with a good finish here this afternoon. Remember, the leader in the points, Al Unser Jr., has already dropped from competition, so Danny Sullivan could very definitely be another leader in the kart points after this race.
One thing, when that outboard CV joint let go on Rick's car, sometimes, now not every time, but sometimes that just shoots debris out on the racetrack. And you could have a cage, or the balls that are inside this CV joint could be somewhere on the racing surface.
Well, in any case, Rick Mears' work continues down in his pit area. There you can see Rick remaining in the race car itself, but work going on there in the right rear of the race car.
This is usually about a 15 or 20-minute job. I feel sure the Roger Penske crew will get this done in 5 5, maybe 6 minutes.
Well, if anybody can do it in that length of time, the Roger Penske crew can do it. Meanwhile, all Rick Mears can do is sit there and take occasional sips of water and wait for the work to be completed. We'll be right back.
This bud's for everybody who sets them up just so they can knock them down. They're league bowlers, and they know that when you join a league, you get rolling. The competition, the excitement, with good times to spare. Find it all in the leagues at your local bowling center. And league bowlers can compete in the Budweiser Hall of Fame tournament coming this winter. Join the action, join a league, and get rolling. For all you do, this bud's for you.
Chevy's winning commitment to quality extends all the way from the finish line to the assembly line, because at Chevrolet, quality is a way of life. And Rick Mears' victory at the 1988 Indy 500 proves it's a winning way of life.
Time Magazine has put together a very special free gift for subscribing. It starts with something everyone needs. A telephone. With automatic redial, a ringer shut-off switch, and a mute button. But when you're on the phone, it makes sense to have a calendar handy. So we've added a permanent calendar. And when you need the date, you often need the time, too. So we've included a digital clock. And then, for all those important messages, we've built in a memo pad, which means you'll need a place for your pen or pencil. So here's a pen and pencil holder. It all adds up to the Ultronic 4-in-1 phone center, and it's free with your paid subscription to Time. Call this number and enjoy 26 weeks of Time for more than 40% off the cover price, payable in 3 monthly installments of just $9.89 each. Call 1-800-284-4500 now. It's the most remarkable offer Time has ever assembled, including this handsome 4-in-1 phone center, free.
Back at Michigan International, you're watching first and second. But the car leading here, the yellow one, driven by Al Unser, is actually second to the second car, which is driven by Danny Sullivan. So what that means is that Danny Sullivan is almost a lap ahead of second place Al Unser Sr. As the Penske cars now run first and second, but the third Penske car remains in the pit area as they work on the Rick Mears machine.
Actually, Bob, it shows that Danny Sullivan is 1 lap ahead of Al Unser right now. If he goes by him now, he should be 2 laps ahead of him.
All right, and there he does indeed go around him. So Danny Sullivan is making a shambles of this race at the moment, with speeds right around 219 miles an hour being turned in by Danny Sullivan. The average speed of the race is 175.38 miles an hour, and that still is ahead of the all-time record he caught, even though we've had a very long yellow period. Let's take a look at our race summary. Leader Danny Sullivan has led 9 of the 165 laps at an average speed of 174 now, .770. 4 caution periods, total of 28 laps. 6 leaders, 13 lead changes, and only 1 car now on the lead lap.
And this could all change through the next series of pit stops. It just has to wait and see how the story unfolds.
Well, the race certainly isn't over by any stretch of the imagination. We pick up our race highlights. Now, it was an unfortunate situation for Roberto Guerrero trying to make another comeback. He drops out of the race. Emerson Fittipaldi also experiences a problem on his car. He was black flagged, and they brought him in to check the car. He came in and got a routine pit stop going and made sure that he had plenty of momentum up as he sped out of the pits, getting the car a little bit squirrely, a little bit sideways as he went out. There is Johnny Rutherford in the A.J. Foyt car, who has been plagued all afternoon. And then Derek Daly crashing against the 3rd and 4th turn wall, bringing the car down into the infield, and that has caused our most lengthy caution period of the afternoon. Bobby Rahal went out without a side pod, but they did that simply because he could keep on the lead lap, and they could come in next time and change the spark box. And as we see from Michael Andretti's in-car ahead of him, Al Unser Sr. slips on some oil that was put down by Billy Vukovich III, spins in pit road, but they quickly got that car headed in the right direction, and Al Sr. went back out onto the racetrack, but in second position. And then just a few minutes ago, trouble for one of the other Penske cars as Rick Mears brought it in with what appears to be a broken CV joint. You can see the car slow dramatically as he came off the second corner. And Al Sr. went around him with no problem whatsoever. Rick Mears brought the car into the pit area. They're continue to work on it there, but it certainly doesn't look good for the rest of the afternoon for Rick Mears, although he might be able to get back when they change that CV joint. Mario Andretti is slowing on the racetrack. He was shown in fourth position, and the attrition continues to really build. Gary Lee has the story.
Well, obviously there's a problem because they had expected Mario to make his final pit stop at lap 188, so very, very early. They go to work, a four-tire change. They top off the fuel, but apparently they're searching for no other problem. So why would Mario make this stop this early? Much earlier than had been anticipated. No mechanical changes or woes in the car, apparently. Just a routine stop, but very early.
The only reason that they would do that would be they have figured out that their fuel mileage would not carry them if they had waited until what they said they were going to do. They had to make this last pit stop now, and then they'll do one more for the final and have enough fuel to go the distance.
Just doesn't appear as if Mario Andretti is building up the speed that he normally does getting back in. As a matter of fact, he's staying below the white line down the backstretch now. So this is something other than just them miscalculating his fuel mileage. There is something wrong with this race car.
Yes, and I'm sorry to say for the Chevrolet cars, but they seem to have this electronics problem, and it seems to be a re-plaguing thing.
We understand that the left front of the car has gone down, and he's going to be coming back into the pit area to have that situation checked again. So another tough break for a contender in the Michigan 500, Mario Andretti. You see anything, Steve, that might give you an indication of the problem?
I don't. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
You see that the left front of the car must have a problem in suspension because it will carry the car on three wheels. That time it just showed that the left front wasn't doing anything, so it must be a pull rod or something.
Well, keep in mind, Steve, as you jack some weight around, you can lift that left front if there's a problem with the right rear. That's exactly what the problem is here. They thought a left front had gone down, so they came in, they changed all four tires to alleviate that problem, but in fact something was broken on the right rear, and that a suspension rocker apparently has broken on the right rear, and they're trying to chase one now back in the paddock area where the garage for this car is, so it will be a very lengthy and very costly pit stop for Mario Andretti. But again, Steve Chassie, a problem in the right rear, making the driver, as experienced as Mario is, think there was a problem in the left front.
Well, that happens in these cars because they are so stiff they can run on three wheels, and when one corner gives up, a driver really can't tell what it is. It takes a visual look from a mechanic.
Steve, the attrition has really shown itself in the last few laps. Can you explain that? Is this the time of race, perhaps, that we will see these little things begin to go wrong with the cars?
Well, if the race had gone green flag the whole race, I would say yes, but with as many, we've had 4 caution periods for 28 laps in the yellow. I would imagine that it's just those little problems that do show up, no matter how much you work at it. You know, they say you'd rather be lucky than good sometimes. And this is a case of needing that luck that's not there for either Mario or Rick Mears.
So 2 of the guys that many thought were really in contention for this race, Mario Andretti and Rick Mears, are both on pit road at this moment. Work done on these race cars, but for right now, the leader of the event is Danny Sullivan with Al Unser Jr. second, a lap down.
A special feature's coming your way from Domino's Pizza to ruin the next day. It's a really big show, so don't be late. 2 regular cheese pizzas for just $8.88. Pay a bit more for toppings. It's all hot and fresh, because it's at your door in 30 minutes or less. Hurry, this won't last forever. Savings like these may be now or never. Domino's Pizza delivers savings.
Jeff Bridges is Preston Tucker. In 1946, he built a car so revolutionary, it had to be stopped.
You make the car too good. Enough right now to cost billions just to keep up with them.
You don't understand how powerful the forces are that are working against us here.
Now we are going to build that car exactly the way we want it. He is dead.
Tucker, the true story of a man and his dream. Rated PG. Starts Friday, August 12th at a theater near you.
August sizzles with sports excitement on ESPN. The NFL is back. See 4 live preseason showdowns. And golf swings into its final Grand Slam event, the PGA Championship. August serves up great tennis. Olympic hopefuls going all out in tune-up for the summer game. And auto racing from the world's most prestigious tracks. Plus, live Wednesday night PGA Tour action. The heat is on in August on ESPN.
If you're looking for business news, you can get it from a Business Monthly, a Business Weekly, or America's leading business daily, the Wall Street Journal.
Call 800-372-3000 for this great journal subscription offer. 13 weeks for just $29.75 with a money-back guarantee. 13 weeks, $29.75. Phone 800-372-3000 now for the Wall Street Journal.
Back at the Marlboro 500, the Penske cars running right together on the racetrack now, and Allenzer Sr. is trying to get his lap back. Let's see if he does it. Oh, Rick really had to get on the binders there.
Great pass. That was
Danny, I should have said.
Yeah. It was a great pass. Danny had nowhere to go with that lap car in front of him, and it was Gordon Johncock.
Yep. Well, you could just see that car almost come to a stop there at 200 miles an hour. Gordon Johncock is doing okay. He's shown in 5th position. He's 7 laps down to the leader, but Gordon Johncock is hanging right in there. This is his first IndyCar start of 1988. He also hopes to compete at the Pocono 500 and also at Nazareth later in the season. So now Danny Sullivan is able to pass Gordon Johncock. There he is, shown in 5th place.
Now we'll see what kind of a lead that Al can build on him, because that may have been just a situation in traffic where he got that good jump. But look at the lead he's building already. He's just moving away.
Well, later tonight here on ESPN, preseason NFL action as we'll be live for the New Orleans Saints against the Minnesota Vikings. Boy, it's football season already. Now, you sure wouldn't believe it if you step outside here this afternoon where it's 90. Nevertheless, the Saints and the Vikings in preseason action tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, right here on ESPN. Danny Sullivan leads the race in the number 9 Penske PC-17 Chevy. The last time he won on an oval was in 1985 at the Indianapolis 500-mile race. He has only 3 wins on oval courses during his entire career. As far as the Michigan 500 is concerned, he has been in 4 previous events, and his best finish was last year when he finished in 4th position.
You know, it's funny, Bob. They talk a lot about Danny's spin and win at the Speedway. And it's funny what one position can make. When Roberto Guerrero spun and ran 2nd, there was nothing made of it. And it was the same feat that Danny pulled off, except for the fact that he won the race.
Well, he also was involved in this situation earlier this year, too. Now, let's take a look at how the chassis stack up in terms of points. The March chassis has accumulated 133 points, the Lola 124, and the Penske 117. But that's probably indicative of the fact that there are more Marches in competitions than there are any of the other 2. And I think that as we saw earlier this weekend when Michael Andretti and the Craco team decided to switch from the March to the Lola, that a lot of teams would perhaps prefer a Lola over a March, especially on a racetrack like this. At one time, the Michael Andretti team was considered to be the March factory team, but they have decided to go with the Lola for the first time here this weekend.
And that decision is exactly what you said. It appeared as though the Lola was the better car on the high-speed circuits. But, you know, Michael was doing well on the road circuits with his March. And, you know, it's a whole new situation now. It's starting from ground zero again. It'll be interesting to see how fast they can get their act together.
Hardee's Race Cam in inside Michael Andretti's Lola. Let's go around this 2-mile tri-oval at Michigan with him. There goes Rick Mears. They've completed the work on that car, and here comes teammate Danny Sullivan, the leader of the race. And Larry Nuber is standing by in the Roger Penske pit.
And Bob, here comes Danny making that patented stop on a dime. Boy, he hit it right on the button. They go to work on all 4 corners of the car. Danny's been out on the racetrack running with teammate Al Unser Sr. as Danny's crew and Chuck Sprague go to work. Bobby Rahal also brings his car to a stop in the True Sports area. They get a full load of fuel on the Miller number 9 car, and the leader of the race, Danny Sullivan, is in and out without incident.
And it was just about 15 seconds. Gary Lee is there for the Bobby Rahal stop.
This time it's a 4-tire stop for the consistent winner in past years, but he's just consistent this year, up in points with that new Judd, the Lola chassis, and he is underway.
They will need one more pit stop because this is lap 186, right, Steve?
Oh, definitely. There's no way they can run this many laps on one 40-gallon load of fuel, so we will see one more pit stop.
Bobby Rahal building up the speed, pulling back in competition on the backstretch. And here is Al Unser Sr., who will be needing a pit stop momentarily. At the moment, though, he goes into the lead, and he's going to have to have a really good pit stop to get back out and still be in contention. Of course, what he would like to see at this moment is a caution, not because of an accident, but perhaps for some debris on the racetrack that would allow him to come in under caution while everybody else is coming in under green.
That would be a great break for him. But a regular pit stop, both cars, 1 and 2, are Penske cars, and so, you know, they both have impeccable pit work, so it depends upon which team performs the best, or unless a situation arises that he can come in to see who the winner of this race will be.
This guy amazes me, Steve. He doesn't compete regularly, but when you get him on a track like this, like Indianapolis, he's a contender. I mean, you always think of him as a potential winner.
Al Unser is a contender on any racetrack in this country. The situation he's involved with is the situation the majority of drivers are involved with, the quality of equipment and the quality of team. You could take an excellent driver and put him in one of the back marker cars, and he'd still be a back marker. You need to have a complete effort in this racing in today's IndyCar world, because everything is so fine-tuned. One slip from one part, one person doesn't give 10/10 of his ability at a race, and you could lose the race.
For the moment, Al Unser Sr. remains in the lead, and nope, here he comes into the lead, in the pits rather. So here comes Al Unser Sr., and let's go once again to Larry Nuber.
Well, just before Al Unser Sr. was able to get his lap back, the crews had radioed both Al and Danny, telling them of the situation, and Al was able to get around Danny Sullivan. Al, like Danny Sullivan, the other teammate that we were just talking about, takes on rubber on all 4 sides of the car. Very quick work on the tires. They're still refilling the car in terms of filling up the fuel cells. And Al stutters just a little bit in leaving the pit area here. But in 14.2 seconds, that may have been about a second off of what they would like to do, but still enough to definitely keep him up in contention.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, though, that they are able to make a pit stop that quickly this late in the race. Here comes Sullivan, and there he is into turn number 1, and he's going to pass Al Unser Sr. on the racetrack. So once again, we have Danny Sullivan back on the lead.
Well, now, see what happened that time could possibly be a lengthy pit stop, because when the fuel gets lower in the tank, there's less pressure shoving it through the hose into the tank in the car. These pit stops are going to take much longer than the early pit stops. So maybe it's strategy coming in now to give Al the win, because if Sullivan comes in later and he has less fuel, his pit stop should take longer.
And you know, it also would seem to me that the crew members would maybe begin to lose a little bit of their edge. It's hot. They've been standing down there in their driver uniforms. They've performed 4 or 5 pit stops already. Might they begin to suffer from the fatigue of the race?
Oh, I'm sure they do. You always get tired when you're out standing in the sun, plus working, plus the mental fatigue, knowing you have to do your best job, knowing he's coming in. I'm sure they're getting tired also, but I don't think the crews are that far off. I think it's more that there's less fuel in the fuel tank, and it takes longer to come out because of less pressure.
All right, 2:08. So Danny Sullivan back in the lead. That car right ahead of him, by the way, is Raul Boesel in car number 30. He is going to be black flagged, Mike Hart, with a stop-and-go penalty for a pit exit violation. You can see him slowing on the racetrack right now. Back with more of the Marlboro, Michigan 500 after these messages. Stay with us.
I'm Michael Andretti, famous for fast starts and fast cars. I get my power in my own cars from Astrolite batteries. On the road, off the road, or around the town with Astrolite batteries.
Astrolite batteries with advanced power technology to get you off to a fast start.
Not bad.
Astrolite gives you the power.
Some garage door manufacturers offer a 1-year warranty. Some will give you one for 10 years. Some will partially cover their garage doors for a little longer. But only one company will warranty its garage door to last as long as you own your home. And that could be a very long time. The Rainer Decade Garage Door. The only door warranted to last as long as you own your home.
Now you put the letter in here, and the letter goes round and round, whoa, and it comes out here.
With Sharp's choice of fax machines, you can send documents in as little as 12 seconds to any place in the world you can phone.
The photo goes round and round, whoa, whoa, and it comes out here.
And that will change the way you do business forever.
And it comes out here.
Sharp, the #1 selling fax machine in America.
Ricky Rudd talks about Quaker State with QSX.
If you're like me, you want your engine to perform. You want it to run clean, and you don't want sludge. That's why you and I both need Quaker State with QSX.
QSX keeps dirt particles in suspension, so they're trapped in your oil filter instead of sludging up your engine.
No other oil runs cleaner or fights sludge better. And the Quaker State I use in my car is the same oil you can buy right off the shelf for your car.
Quaker State, the big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
People had a lot of fun getting Ford Ranger to the top. Ford Ranger.
Get up to $750 cash bonus on America's best-selling compact truck, Ford Ranger.
Danny Sullivan leads the Marlboro, Michigan 500 after 196 laps. Make that 197 as he crosses the start-finish line. So just a little more than 50 laps to go in this event. There goes Mario Andretti back in competition. He's been in the pits for a long time, but they've completed the repairs to that car, and Mario goes back out. Now watch how he stays below that yellow line with all 4 tires. We mentioned a few minutes ago that Raul Boesel was being black flagged for a violation, and the violation was if he got those tires above that yellow line there in the first and second turns, he was penalized with a stop-and-go penalty. And there is Raul, as a matter of fact, right on the racetrack running with our leader, Danny Sullivan. Well, the most recent round of pit stops completed, and not really much change in the standings from before and after. And here it is once again, Steve, as we can see the amount of time it takes a driver to come in and out, and the crew time, the actual work in the pit area.
It's amazing that the crew time was that quick. Our next fuel stop, I'm sure the crew won't show that good. Now, Rahal did an excellent job entering and exiting the pits, but the crew time was much better on Sullivan. That means that Sullivan, if he picks up his entrance and exit a little bit along with his crew work, he gains a lot of time on the racetrack. Rahal was 33.17 seconds, which, you know, it's not a whole lot faster than 33.94. That's almost 34 seconds, and that's just over 33 seconds. But at this speed, at 200 miles an hour, you're traveling more than 2 football field distances every second. So that's a long way on the racetrack.
Our pit stop efficiency presented by Signature Inns. Sullivan with a full lap lead over Al Unser Sr. Bob Bobby Rahal third, then Michael Andretti, Gordon Johncock, Tony Bettenhausen sixth, Raul Boesel seventh, followed by Phil Kruger, Dick Simon, John Jones, Mario Andretti. And here is a battle on the racetrack, Raul Boesel and Tony Bettenhausen. Now, sponsorship on this Tony Bettenhausen car, the white one, is by Yugo of America, and that is the first foreign car maker to get involved in sponsorship of an Indy car. There he is, car number 16, Tony Bettenhausen, shown in 6th position, 9 laps down.
Tony's a favorite of a lot of people and a lot of the small teams because he's one of the guys that's been struggling. He has good equipment, but he has a very, very small budget. And it's well, I don't know how many times harder, but it's much harder to run a race car and a race team with no budget.
Well, he has just lost 6th position to Raul Boesel in car number 30. There he is, the red, white, and blue Domino's Pizza sponsored car. So we move Raul up into 6th. And now Al Unser is right behind Danny Sullivan once again. Let's go to the pit area and get an update on the Rick Mears situation.
Well, Bob, you were commenting that they changed that half shaft, that right rear half shaft, in just 16 minutes. Well, if this were not the heat of the battle, to do it properly, Petey Parra told me it would probably take about an hour. To equate that to how long it would take you to get similar repairs on your pleasure car at home is pretty difficult because obviously the car at home in the garage doesn't use half shafts, but basically we're talking about an axle here. And I guarantee you that if you took the car to the dealership where you bought the machine and left it there, he'd spend about a half a day in between phone calls and coffee breaks and all those other things that go along with labor in today's society to help repair your car. So from a half a day to your car to an hour, not in the heat of battle, to just 16 minutes here during the running of the Michigan 500.
We can relate that, however, to what it cost him. Only 16 minutes in the pit area cost him 28 laps and dropped him 12 positions.
Right now, we have Al Unser running behind Danny Sullivan and looking for a way by. And from what I've seen, it looks as though he can't run real tight on him because he loses the front end. That's what it appears anyway. But if, in fact, Al does pass Danny, then he'll just be putting himself back on the same lap.
Right.
But he has to make one complete circuit to get back up behind Danny in hopes of a pass for the lead.
But should he pass Sullivan and then we have a yellow, the pace car picks up the leader, and Al Unser would be able to encircle the entire track and really make a race out of this.
Oh, yes.
Well, we've talked throughout the race about how important tires are to a race car, and believe it or not, the radial tires are being tried here for the first time. Here is an ESPN Quick Fact. Quick Facts are brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
This will mark the first season the Michigan 500 will be contested on radial tires. Goodyear tried their new radials a couple of years ago, had some blowouts in practice, never ascertained exactly what the problem was, so they went back to the bias ply last year. But this year, all the IndyCar races will be on radial tires. The radial tire is said to be more consistent. It doesn't grow as the tire gets hot, so the stagger remains consistent. Goodyear is providing 2 stagger sizes this weekend, 17 and 25/100ths of an inch. The crew will select their stagger, set the chassis up. Then if the chassis needs to be adjusted during the competition, they will likely make the adjustment through the wings and not by changing tire stagger.
A good crowd on hand here at Michigan International Speedway to watch this Marlboro 500 IndyCar race. And we will continue with our coverage here on ESPN after these messages.
In auto racing, the big Q stands for quality. In Quaker State's 11,000 RPM Porsche-powered IndyCar. In Ricky Rudd's 625 horsepower high-torque V8. These great racing engines demand the great name in motor oil. Quaker State with QSX, proven to run clean for unbeatable protection from wear and tear.
And the Quaker State that protects all these engines on the track is the same oil you buy right off the shelf.
Quaker State, the big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
Cable ads is smart advertising. At Cablevision, we bring your product to the customers you desire at rates that are affordable. Cable advertising works. We create and promote campaigns designed to increase awareness of your products and get the customers you target into your business, which increases your sales. The success of your business and our community is what we're all about.
Discover Mountain Media today. In Charleston, contact Dina Caldwell.
Something's happened to the American family. Something wonderful. It's getting together with the Disney Channel. The Disney Channel has magical entertainment the whole family can share every day. We're bringing the family together. The Disney Channel, available only on cable TV. Call your local cable company today.
10 best cars and the world's best-selling car. Along with all their acclaim, these cars share the nameplate of America's most successful car company, Ford.
Winning the world over. Have you been behind the wheel? Winning the world over. Have you driven a Ford lately?
We hope you're enjoying our coverage of the Michigan 500, sponsored by Marlboro's second leg of IndyCar Racing's Triple Crown. Of course, the first leg was won earlier this year at Indianapolis by Rick Mears, but right now, teammate Danny Sullivan is in command of this race. Rick is out. We go to the pit area.
Well, it started with a broken half shaft, or actually the CV joint, but finally took you out for good.
I think his fuel box, the motor was still, Chevy was still running great.
As a matter of fact, somebody came up and told me from the crew, you're turning laps at 220, Rick.
Yeah, we had quite a few 220 laps in there. I mean, it just shows you how well it was running. The thing was running very strong, and I tell you, we were just kind of running along, running a nice pace, and that's racing. Now we have to look toward Pocono.
Well, you had that big lead before the first caution flag, and then after that, everybody seemed to be a little closer. Did you decide consciously, hey, let's kind of step back a little bit and make this car finish?
Well, we did that to a point. The car neutraled up on me just a little bit in traffic. It was still very good by itself, but it was a little bit neutral in traffic, so I went ahead and backed the pace down to save the right rear tire, and that's when everybody caught up, and we were, mixing around in there for a while until we could make a stop and make a change. That early in the race was no sense in leaning on it. The guys made a couple changes on the car, and really from that point on, it was a rocket ship. The thing was just, it was very fast on the straightaway, as you could see, in the straight line.
Well, rocket is a term I've also heard used about this man, Rick the Rocket Mears. And I'll tell you one thing for sure, still, the PC-17 Chevy Mears combination is the one to beat on the big ovals.
And they'll compete on a big oval next time, too. That will be in Pocono, which will be in 2 weeks. So Rick Mears has played his hand. He has shown his cards, and he has lost this particular hand, but he'll be back with more as the season progresses. The two Penske cars, Danny Sullivan and Al Unser Sr. Sr. is to the inside of Danny going into turn number 1, and Sr. gets his lap back. Now, we've seen this happen on numerous occasions this year when the Penske cars are running together. Steve, your opinion on whether there is some team strategy being played out here?
I don't think so. I think, knowing Roger Penske as I do, he runs each team separately, and each car is there to win the race. They don't really do anything except offer courtesy to one another. When you're out there racing, it's each driver and team and car for himself. But what we saw there was Al made a textbook pass. He drafted to just the right time, made his pass, went by, and as you go by, your dirty air from your exit on your underwing messes up the car behind, and that's why you saw Danny come back so far. But now Danny's back up, back in the draft. But from behind, if your car is not real good in the draft and dirty air, it's a hard time to pass.
We understand that Al Unser Sr. may be losing some power on that race car. He's dropping on the racetrack, allowing Sullivan to draw very, very closely, but no, he's back on the accelerator, and this could, though, indicate an engine problem.
Yeah, see, when he's coming off the corner, he's slowing down, and then he picks speed up at the end. So what it is, it's hard to tell. tell at this moment. That would indicate a fuel problem, but they just had a fuel stop not long ago.
Well, they have allowed Danny Sullivan to go ahead of Al Unser for fear that the engine might go and spread some oil onto the racetrack. Gary Lee is in the pit area with Mario.
The only time I like to talk to this guy is in victory lane, because there's always that disappointment, there's frustration written across your face. What put you out this time, Mario?
The engine finally went, but we had problem all day. The engine just wasn't running properly, and I had no pickup. And for some reason or other, I just seemed like the thing leveled off, and then my performance was just very dismal. So chassis was just fantastic. Just one of those things.
So a shake of the head and the comment, it's one of those things, and Mario again is out of the race.
Here's Al back in the pits again.
Well, Chas, the first thing that Clive Howell, the crew chief on this car, grabbed was pieces that normally fit into the electrics area of the car. So Al comes to a stop here in the pits. The engine was running when he came into the pit area, but he shut it off as soon as he got here. They knew exactly they had a problem. Now, the fuel metering box is something else that I've seen grabbed. They're taking that underneath the covering of the car. The water bottle's coming over the wall. Let's see if Al accepts it or not. He takes it. It's a very warm day down here, and certainly refreshments are quite welcome, no matter what your role is down here, be a TV commentator or car owner or a race driver himself. As you can see, they have both sides of the side pods removed, and they're getting underneath both of them, and they are definitely into the electrics area.
Although a Chevy engine with Danny Sullivan leads this race, we could very well have the first race this year won by a non-Chevy engine. We'll be right back.
Performance,
And the PC-17 Chevy leads this race. Now, Michael Andretti has just received a stop-and-go violation for stop-and-go penalty for a pit exit violation. Apparently, the tires above that yellow line that we talked about several times during the race. Raul Boesel is in trouble here on pit road as there's smoke pouring from the rear end of that race car. He makes it to his pit area and stops there, where the crew takes a look at what might be going on.
With that oil coming out of the exhaust pipe like that, it's almost evident that it's either burned a piston, broke a rod, and then taking the piston out, shoving all the oil out of the exhaust.
Raul Boesel was in 7th position when he had this problem. Here's the second place car of Bobby Rahal. Gary Lee is there.
So many times today we've talked about his consistency. You have to finish to win with the attrition rate. This Judd-powered Lola is looking very good right now as Jim Prescott and Steve Horn and the crew go to work, change all 4 top of the fuel. Bobby Rahal engages the gear, and he is underway.
15.4-second stop for Bobby Rahal. He pulls out onto the racetrack, and now Danny Sullivan should be coming in for a pit stop, possibly this time around, and this will be the final scheduled series of pit stops because we're within the 40-lap window. We're at lap 222, and indeed, here comes Danny Sullivan in for his probable final pit stop of the afternoon.
We'll get a time on his pit stop now. The last pit stop on Rahal was 15.4. The one previous was also 15.4 on crew time. So we'll see how quickly they can get the fuel in this car.
I don't think they're going to change tires on this car. They look them over and they say they're okay, but they are, of course, getting that last precious drop of fuel in. Here he comes. As you see, Al Unser Sr., his teammate, still there on pit road as work continues, but Danny Sullivan is back out onto the racetrack, and now we are set up for possibly the finish of this race with 223 laps completed. There is Michael Andretti for the stop-and-go penalty that we mentioned just a few minutes ago, and he's having a little bit of trouble getting that car back up to speed. They had to push it out, and any speculation, Steve?
Well, when these engines get so hot and you come in and you almost stall them, they get a big nasty load of fuel inside, or sometimes they might vapor lock and not draw enough fuel until you get it up a little bit of speed, a little bit of RPM. Oh, almost another violation here. You've got to be careful.
We're watching from the Hardee's race cam. There's the okay to go back out onto the racetrack with all 4 wheels, and he makes a clean exit from pit road on that stop-and-go penalty. So Danny Sullivan is in command with Bobby Rahal 2nd, Michael Andretti 3rd, Al Unser Sr. 4th, and Gordon Johncock 5th as we are in the closing laps of the Michigan Marlboro 500. speed of the race to this point is 182.31 miles an hour. And as you can see, that's about 11 miles an hour faster than the all-time IndyCar 500 record set last year by Michael Andretti. And that is despite the fact that we have had 4 caution periods this afternoon. One which lasted quite a while when Derek Daly crashed over between turns 3 and 4. There were only 2 caution periods for 25 laps last year in this race. And so we are on a record-setting pace for a 500-mile race. And Danny Sullivan is turning laps currently at about 219.7 miles an hour. So he is definitely staying on the accelerator, trying to pull away from the rest of the field. Now we'll show you some of the other cars that are out there in competition behind Danny Sullivan, the leader, in no particular order, by the way. Sullivan, of course, is the leader in the PC-17 Chevy. As we pan back and pick up the next car, it is Gordon Johncock in car number 85, competing for the first time in Indy cars this year.
Gordon is he's one of those guys like Al Unser. He has the ability. All he needs is equipment. When he quit at the Speedway, everyone said he's lost his nerve, he's lost his desire. And no one really knows why he quit except Gordy. But he's back, and he's shown today that he still has the ability.
Dick Simon is currently running in 8th position in car number 22. Now, they show us the best speed that a car has achieved during a race on our data speed monitor here. And this guy, as far as I can tell, has about the 5th fastest speed of the afternoon at over 217 miles an hour. Randy Lewis in car number 24 is shown in 14th position, despite the fact that he had an engine fire in the pit area several laps ago. He went back out and is still out there in competition. Phil Kruger is another one of those guys who doesn't compete very often on the CART PPG IndyCar World Series schedule. However, for this race, he is driving car number 77, and Phil is in 6th position.
You know, Phil is one of the few guys around, like an A.J. Foyt, that can drive a race car, manage a team, and mechanic it. He does this car mechanically himself, although it's owned by the George Walter organization. He actually is the mechanic and the driver, and he's an underdog that everybody pulls for. He's a great guy, and he's an excellent mechanic, which is the job he held with the Rayner team before he started driving again this year.
And I'll tell you, his performance at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway this year was just something that I think was one of the best stories of the entire month.
Oh, yes.
Bobby Rahal is the next car on the racetrack. However, you can see that there is quite a wide interval between Phil Kruger and the next car. We give you some indication of just how much these cars are separated. And there is Bobby Rahal driving car number 1, sponsored by Budweiser. He is in 2nd position now, but is a lap down to the field. Rahal has done a lot of experimenting with his Judd engine. And I'll tell you, he has surprised a lot of people this year, because there were those who said, well, you might as well write off this year with that Judd engine. It's just not proven enough, and he has proven them wrong. The next car on the racetrack is the 3rd place machine of Michael Andretti. Last year's winner, last year's pole sitter. He is 4 laps down, but he is still in 3rd position. And once again, it's very important that he stay out there and finish well for those important PPG points.
And it's a struggle also with a new car. But as long as he stays out, they learn. If he comes in and gives up, not only do they not get the points, they don't learn about their new car.
Tony Bettenhausen is in car number 16, and he is driving a fine race in 5th position. Tony Bettenhausen finished in 2nd place in the inaugural Michigan 500. And there is, by the way, the number 12 car driven by John Jones, who is well off the pace. He is being shown right now in 10th position. If he does finish in 10th or lower, it's going to mess up his streak that he has going. He has finished in 7th position in the last 3 consecutive IndyCar races. But today, he is being shown in 10th position. The reason we were talking about Tony Bettenhausen and didn't find him on the track is because he came in for a pit stop, and there he is. And this is for, again, a stop-and-go violation. They're really watching this pit exit situation very closely. That's the reason he's in for the stop-and-go penalty. Right now, let's go to the pits.
I'll tell you, he doesn't race all that often, but you'd never know it. Every time you get behind the wheel of an Indianapolis car, particularly the Penske car, it just goes like old times, Al.
Yeah, it does. They're good race cars, a good team. Of course, the sponsor, Detroit Diesel, it helps.
Al, were you pacing yourself today? I know Rick was out front running like a jackrabbit. Everybody's trying to keep up with him. But how about you? Were you all out?
Well, at times I was, yeah. There at the last trying to make up a lap, I was, yeah. Very definitely so. But at times I tried to, save the car as much as I could, but it doesn't help right now.
Well, the bottom line, we were speculating electrics. I saw the box go over the wall. The car came in with the engine running, but what was the final analysis?
Well, something in the engine, I don't know exactly what. They changed the electrical boxes and all that, and hoping that would do it, and then we started it, and they said no, that it was something else wrong.
At this point, where is the next IndyCar race that we can see you behind the wheel at?
Pocono, 2 weeks from now, and the IROC next weekend. So it keeps me busy, but not busy enough.
Okay, Al Unser Sr. out of the race.
So Al Unser Jr. has dropped out of competition, and so has Mario Andretti and several others. The crowd here, and there is a big one, looking for the shade on this hot summer afternoon at Michigan International Speedway. We'll be right back. And the yellow has come out for the 5th time this afternoon, and we're dealing here with what could be a record speed. However, this may be a problem and may slow the pace down to under that record level. The reason for the yellow is this car, the number 22 machine driven by Dick Simon. There has been some liquid seen coming from that race car, and the CART officials are going out there to determine if there is oil or some other liquid on the racetrack that might present a hazard to the other competitors. Dick Simon has been given the black flag. There you can see it, Steve.
The oil is just spraying out of the back end now. Usually when a piston goes, it puts white smoke out. That looks more like a genuine oil leak of sorts, or it could be a fluid leak, maybe a coolant leak. It's spraying out back rather than coming out in this smoke form.
So the yellow comes out on lap number 239, which means we're only 11 laps from the finish of this race. And if there is a considerable amount of oil on the racetrack all the way around, it's going to take several laps for them to put the oil dry down and clean it up. So we are looking here at perhaps only a few more laps actually run in race conditions under green.
And we always like to see a race end under the yellow, but in a situation like this where Dick was unaware of his problem, he made maybe a lap and a half losing his fluids, whether it was oil or water or whatever, and that means the whole racetrack is covered with some sort of a liquid. And if it's too bad and it's too slippery, it's best to end under the yellow. Although we won't see a gun shoot to the end, it's safer, much safer. And at these speeds of over 200 miles an hour, a little bit of liquid causes a lot of trouble.
Well, we're thinking right now about who we're going to be awarding the Goodyear Eagle Driver of the Race Award, and Goodyear will be given $1,000 to Kara, the Championship Auto Racing Auxiliary, in that driver's name. We'll think about it and tell you after this. Steve Chassie, Larry Nuber, and Gary Lee back at Michigan International Speedway, where we are still under the caution flag. And we have only 13 more laps to go, I believe. 441 completed, so 9 laps to go as the crowd begins to stand up and anticipate the finish of this race. Steve, we've talked about this during our commercial break, and awarding a driver this race is a very difficult choice. I think my first reaction is to give it to somebody like Tony Bettenhausen or Phil Kruger, who are going to finish apparently 4th or 5th in this race. Here are guys that you don't think of as super duper race drivers, but they've been very good performers here today.
That's true. And, these guys are the guys that put the show on, and they struggled it, and they make the show. Now, Danny Sullivan is going to win the race, it looks like, and he's going to win all the money and all the fame and the glory. And these little guys, it's a tough choice. I would like to see it split between the two of them, but it's not my choice to make, so...
Well, you really got to give it, we believe, to Danny Sullivan. After all, this guy is apparently going to win the race. He is going to move into the PPG point standings. He is going to win his first oval track race in 3 years. It's been more than 3 years since he won it. So in our opinion, the Goodyear Eagle driver of the race is Danny Sullivan. So Goodyear will be sending a check for $1,000 in his name to Kara. It will be used to a very good cause and to a very good driver. This is going to give Roger Penske perhaps his first win at the racetrack that he owns.
Yeah, I bet he'll be thrilled even though his other 2 cars are out. Another thing I was looking at is we only have at this point in time 8 cars left running in this race. And we've only had 1 accident, which was Derek Bailey. And we were talking all day about the 10 tenths required, and we're going to go green again here, Bob.
Okay, and this comes on lap number 243, completing lap 243. And despite the fact that there are very few cars on the racetrack, some of these guys, and look at it, it's 4 abreast racing, some of these guys know that they can pick up a position here in these last few laps. So they're going 10 tenths even with just 7 laps to go.
It's surprising how much reserve you can keep for this last little shootout, these last 7 laps. Those are all positions they're racing for there. Everyone is tenths and going 10 tenths.
Bobby Rahal is in 2nd position. He's in that red car, 3rd in line there. There goes the winner, the leader by Danny Sullivan. And here come the rest of the only 8 cars that are still in competition. That's Phil Kruger in number 77, the silver and blue car driven by Gordon Johncock, now on the high side of the racetrack, and Bobby Rahal. And right behind that group of 3 is the car of Michael Andretti, the Hardee's race cam with the pictures around Michigan.
Notice how good his car's working. He drives in the corner, his right hand comes up, and he doesn't have to come way back down and jerk back down. That means the car is not loose. The car is handling very, very well.
In front of him, Phil Kruger and Gordon Johncock are wheel to wheel and side by side.
Now, he's following these 2 cars. He's getting a lot of disturbance from them. Now, this should make his car push more, but if it doesn't, his car is absolutely excellent. Now, he may be concerned about these 2 cars in front of him because he's running 3rd and feels they should let him go by. Well, those 2 guys are racing for a spot also.
Something just blew onto the lens. I think that gives you an indication of how much debris and trash is blown back in your face during the course of the game.
Oh, sure. That was a little wiggle of rubber off the tires.
246 laps have been completed. There are 4 more circuits to go for Danny Sullivan from Louisville, Kentucky. His best finish this year has been a win at Portland. He's been very consistent, especially since Milwaukee. His finishes since Milwaukee: a 2nd, a win at Portland, a 3rd at Cleveland, a 2nd at Toronto, and a 4th at the Meadowlands, and what appears to be a win here at Michigan. And as we indicated, he will go again on top of the PPG point standings at the conclusion of this race, should he hang on for another 2.5 laps.
And the way his car looks and the way it sounds when it goes by and the speed he's carrying, I would say that his car is in excellent shape. And of course, when your car is in excellent shape like that, even though it's hot, you don't work so hard all day, so I'd say he's in excellent shape.
The fastest lap recorded for him during the course of this event has been 219 miles an hour, and that is given the fact that the pole speed here by Rick Mears was 218. So he found some faster speed in the race than they found during qualifying.
It looks as though Bobby Rahal is coming up on him, but even if Rahal does catch him, his pit, Danny's pit, will tell him, let him go. You have a lap on him. And there's no way he could come back around and put 1 more lap to the lead for him. So if he gets real tight, Danny won't give the race up. He'll let him go.
And of course, the Bobby Rahal crew is hoping that somewhere along the line there has been a scoring miscalculation and he is on the lead lap, but that is not the case according to the information that we're getting right now. Danny Sullivan is on the lead lap by himself and is is about to receive the checkered flag. He moves into turn number 3, keeping the car in the middle of the racetrack. He comes off of the 4th corner. Danny Sullivan has won the Marlboro, Michigan 500, the second race of auto racing's Triple Crown. Rick Mears wins Indianapolis. Danny Sullivan wins at Michigan, the 3rd leg, coming up 2 weeks from today at Pocono International Raceway. So there is the winner of the race, Danny Sullivan. His 4th oval win of his career.
And it's the first win for Roger Penske at his home track.
Danny Sullivan saluting as he goes down the backstretch. The fans that have gathered along the fence back there in the backstretch are waving to him, and he's waving back as Victory Lane is prepared right in front of us here in the grassy area separating the racetrack from the pit area. Danny Sullivan has slowed the car down coming off of corner number 4. He makes his way down pit road, and Danny Sullivan is headed for Victory Lane. Sullivan moves into Victory Lane, and the Marlboro 500 has been brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? By the Robert Bosch Corporation, makers of Bosch Platinum, the ultimate spark plug. By Goodyear Eagle Tires, Goodyear because there really is a difference. And by Quaker State Motor Oil, the big Q stands for quality, always has, always will. And we will be back to talk with the winner of this race, Danny Sullivan, in just a moment as the Marlboro, Michigan 500 has concluded and Sullivan is in Victory Lane. Give me 5. Hey. Well, the distinction of doing the interview with the winner falls to Larry Nuber. Here he is.
Well, when the day began, Danny Sullivan said, well, I'm not feeling so well. We know that he was prepared, at least as far as pumping that body with fluids. I guess you got to get sick more often. It made a longer day, though, for you, didn't it?
Well, it did make it a little tougher, but I don't know. Maybe it helped me with the whole attitude. Derek and I had actually talked about a substitute driver. It was one of those deals where I'd sit down, I was okay, but when I stood up, I felt real dizzy, and Leon Mandel said, well, just sit down. That's what you're going to be doing all day anyway.
Did that work, sitting in the cockpit?
Yeah, there was a couple of times where just when we were in a race and I could concentrate, it was a lot easier than when I could start thinking about not feeling 100%.
Well, Danny, Rick and Al Sr. had the edge on you for the first half of the race. Were you trying to pace yourself, or were you really struggling to keep up with them?
Well, there were times we'd go in and out. Like, my car was better to Big Al's early in the fuel load. His was better later on. We were also running ours very lean. I don't know what his mixture was. We ran sometimes 5th gear, we ran sometimes 6th gear. Derek radioed me one time. He says, how's the balance? I said, well, I got a little understeer. And he said, well, you just ran a 221. And I said, well, I guess it's not that bad, you know, but it ran good all day. It would have been a hell of a battle had we all three been on the same lap, nose to tail at the end. I would have had a hard time with them.
Speaking of that, as you saw Emo and Mario drop out and Rick and Al Sr., you must have been thinking, geez, what's going to happen to me?
Well, I thought about it. Rick had a CV problem, Al had a motor problem, but I thought, you know, there's not a damn thing I can do about it. I just got to run it, run my race. If it happens, it happens. I can't do much about it.
Well, you know, you join Mario Andretti and Johnny Rutherford now, I believe, as the only 3 active IndyCar drivers who have now won all 3 of the 500s. Did you ever think that was going to happen when you run around those road courses in the early part of your career?
No way, especially when everybody keeps telling me I can't drive on an oval, you know, that I can't do this very well. You know, I'm just happy for myself and, of course, the Miller Penske team, but particularly this is special for Roger because Roger's never won the Marlboro 500 here at his own track. He's never completed and won this race. He's won the 250s and the 200s, but not this one.
Well, this was the 8th running of the Michigan 500 at the Michigan International Speedway, and Danny Sullivan is the 8th different face to grace Victory Lane.
And our winner's circle interview has been brought to you by Goodyear Eagle Tires. Goodyear because there really is a difference. And the domination of the Chevy engine in IndyCar racing also continues as Sullivan brings it home once again to Victory Lane. We'll be back. Celebration continues in Victory Lane. Danny Sullivan has won the Marlboro, Michigan 500. And not only that, he has moved atop the point standings with 104. Bobby Rahal now second with 87. Al Unser Jr. is third with 86. Rick Mears has 80 and Michael Andretti 77. It's still a very close battle for the PPG Cup. Let's go to Larry Nuber, who's with Roger Penske.
Well, the best case scenario is a 1-2-3 finish. But if you can't get that, I guess second best is winning the Michigan 500 finally, eh?
Well, Larry, I'll tell you, for a while there, you know, Rick was running great, and Al and Danny, and then we started dropping like flies, and I said, wow, what's going to happen? So we had an outboard CV brake, which is a very, very critical part on the car on Rick's, and I was concerned for the safety of the other two drivers that we'd have the same kind of a failure, but evidently Rick was running it so hard that we had that failure on the outside. But Danny and Al were going at it there for a while. I was hoping they were going to wait and race the last 20 laps. But, you know, we've tried to win this race for, I guess, 8 years. We've crashed. We've let it. You know, last year Al had a good chance at it. But it's great for Danny. And most important, I said that whoever wins these 2 500s is the one that's going to be key for the championship. And that's, of course, what we're keying on this year is we've won some races. Now we got to win that championship.
During the show, we chronicled your very busy month of July from Canada to Japan to L.A., seemingly on a single day. Now that this is finally over, we had a nice crowd up in the stands. Do you finally have a chance to sit back and maybe watch the late news tonight?
Well, I hope so. Maybe I'm going to rerun of this race. I hope someone's taped it, because that's the most fun when you win a 500, to be able to sit back and watch the race and kind of replay when you know what's happened.
This was a really tough one today because it wasn't as hot as it was on Friday and Saturday. It wasn't not quite as humid, but still the heat was really concentrating on all of us down on the pits, and there were times when you really had to step back and remember, I got to keep concentrating.
That's right, and you saw the drivers running at laps 217, 218, and 220, and that just takes so much out of the car. I just think that the key thing is to use your head, and I know Derek was telling Danny there at the end with a lap lead on Rahal. He said, just use your head, because it's so easy to make one mistake, and all that work you've done building to a victory like this goes away. But Larry, it's a great day. We had a good, safe race. I hope that we had one accident there. How's that driver?
We had only sketchy reports on Derek, but the information we had was that he's in good shape.
Okay, well, that's the main thing. We had a good, safe race, and you know, for us, we had a bunch of our employees here, which was a real culmination of a team effort. So Danny bringing it home makes it all tremendous.
Well, after talking to Danny, we said in 8 years of the Michigan 500, Danny was the 8th different face in victory lane. This is the first time that this face has been in victory lane after Michigan 500.
It was a very good afternoon. Nice weather, although it was a little bit hot, but it was a nice, safe race and a very competitive one. And we also pass along our get well wishes to A.J. Foyt, who's recuperating at home, and Bobby Allison, who we understand is doing very, very well and progressing very well at a hospital in Birmingham, Alabama. The top 10 finishers in this race: Danny Sullivan, the winner, with Bobby Rahal finishing second. Michael Andretti was third. Tony Bettenhausen fourth, and Phil Kruger finished in fifth position. The second 5, Gordon Johncock was sixth, then Dick Simon seventh, John Jones was eighth, Al Unser was ninth, and Scott Atchison in his first 500 finished in 10th position. We'll be back with more after this. Top 5 finishers in the Marlboro 500. Danny Sullivan, the winner. Bobby Rahal was second. Third was Michael Andretti. Fourth, Tony Bettenhausen. And Phil Kruger finished in 5th position. So for the third time this year, Bobby Rahal is on the winner's podium. But it's for a second place finish, and Gary Lee is right down there to talk with him.
Bobby, the third time this season, a second place. I think we could characterize your season as not being spectacular, but consistent. And once again, with second place, you're well up in the point standings.
Well, we're being tenacious, if nothing else, but the car ran beautifully today. You know, I ran laps at 218 under the green, 217, 216. A slow lap in traffic was 212, 211. You know, and Danny was just a little bit stronger than we were, and we had that problem. We lost the battery. The electrical system went flat on me about midway through, and the crew changed the battery. We made all those stops under the yellow. And I'll tell you, I have no complaints. The car ran absolutely fantastic the whole day.
Realistically, I don't think I've ever seen you happier in finishing second than you are today.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm disappointed. When you run as hard as you've run all day and you end up with second, you're disappointed with that. Obviously, you'd like to win, but this is a horsepower track, and I think the Judd, you know, the new generation engines coming out are just that much better. And if we could run with the Chevys here, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape elsewhere.
All right, take a look at this face, because this could be the answer to a trivia question. If he can win one more title, 3 in a row, he and Ted Horn would be the only two ever to do it in championship car racing. Bob?
All right, our congratulations to Bobby Rahal. And Steve, it was really a race that had involved a lot of attrition. Very few cars made it to the checkered flag.
That's right, Bob. Today we only saw 8 cars take the checkered flag. And I think the reason for that is when you run 10 tenths, which you have to do to win a race these days, on a racetrack like this that's so difficult and the heat thrown in, it just takes a toll on equipment.
It was a very quick race. The average speed was over 180 miles an hour. That makes it the fastest IndyCar 500 ever run. A week from today, we'll be at the Our thanks to the Hardy Systems and to Valvoline for their in-car cameras and to Signature Inn for their pit stop efficiency reports. Signature Inn, quality accommodations at an affordable price. And our congratulations to Danny Sullivan, who won today's Marlboro 500. Thanks to pit reporters Larry Newber and Gary Lee and Steve Chassie in the booth. Thank you for watching. For now, this is Bob Jenkins. So long, everyone, from Michigan International.